Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, Hilda Sentumule, is expected to testify before Parliament's ad hoc committee that's investigating police corruption. Sentumule's appearance today comes after several delays since last year when she was initially scheduled to testify. National Coloured Congress leader and MP Fidel Adams will also resume his evidence from last week to continue facing questions from MPs about allegations that he recklessly mishandled classified information. Babalondenza reports.
Hilda Sentumule, who is also the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services, will engage with evidence leaders and MPs today to finally give her evidence. Sentumule's testimony will focus on her knowledge of Minister on Special Leave Senzo Mchunu's directive to disband the political killings task team. Sentumule was also accused by suspended Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya of benefiting from alleged crime kingpin Vusimuzi Matlala. Evidence leader Norman Arnser says her evidence will come after Fidel Adams.
We propose to call Honourable Adams first. You will recall that the committee members still have to ask questions of him. He has been led. And then to call Lieutenant General Sentumule.
The committee will hear evidence from National Commissioner Fanima Semola and KZN top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi next week Tuesday and Wednesday respectively. Babalondenza, Eyewitness News.
While Gauteng residents are anticipating what the Finance MEC Hangwani Maumela will say about the province's funds when he delivers his budget speech today, there is some uncertainty over whether it will be adopted by the legislature. The ANC is leading a minority government in the province, meaning it doesn't have the 50% plus one majority. It's expected that allocations for key portfolios such as health, education and infrastructure will feature prominently in his speech. Alfara Mushwana reports.
Last year, Gauteng Finance MEC Hangwani Maumela presented a 172 billion rand annual budget, which was later adjusted with an additional 3 billion rand. Although the EFF sits in the opposition benches, it supported the passing of the budget. However, following a fallout with the ANC, EFF leader Julius Malema has vowed that his party will no longer assist the ANC in passing legislation or budget in the provincial legislature. Meanwhile, the DA spokesperson for Finance, Ruhan Robinson, says he doubts that the upcoming budget speech will prioritize the service delivery needs of residents.
One of the most pressing issues remains the supply of water, and thousands of people have been left without water as a result of this.
Maumela recently announced that so far, the provincial government has spent more than 83% of its budget for the current financial year, which ends at the end of this month. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
And Iran's Revolutionary Guards say they will determine the end of the war in the Middle East after U.S. President Donald Trump said the conflict would end soon. The RGC says the future status of the region is now in the hands of the armed forces and that American forces will not end the war. Trump and Israel started the war with a barrage of airstrikes targeting Iran almost 2 weeks ago. Their attacks have reportedly killed more than 100 people in Iran and injured thousands more. Iran's retaliatory strikes have killed 7 American soldiers and at least 10 people in Israel. Speaking at a media briefing in Florida, Trump predicted a quick end to the conflict.
On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to
soon.
Gold is trading at $5,175.96 an ounce. The rand is at 16.28 to the dollar, 21.90 to the pound, 18.94 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $92.67 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got heavy traffic volumes along the Marlborough Drive. This is towards Catherine Street in the Sandton CBD. Please be on the lookout there and approach with care. If you're traveling on Greyston Drive, also do anticipate delays, especially if you're coming out of the M1 North. And then if you're traveling on the M1 South, delays between the Baklua Interchange and Corlett Drive.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed that 550 soldiers have been deployed to Gauteng to aid police in the fight against crime.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Clement Manyathela Show. It's great to have you with us here on 702. I trust and hope you're good this morning. The 702 open line starts now on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Did American soldiers kill over 160 young girls in Iran? Well, evidence seems to suggest so. Remember that strike that happened on an elementary school about a week ago? That's killed scores of children. It actually remains the deadliest incident of civilian casualties. Initially, the suggestion was that Israel did it. 165 young innocent girls gone, killed. And now it appears the country that has consistently claimed it doesn't target civilians in conflicts or wars may be responsible. I mean, there wasn't a lot of surprise when it was suggested that Israel is behind this attack on this girls' school. It wasn't surprising because, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time Israel kills children during war. They did so in Gaza in their thousands. Thousands of children were killed, according to aid organizations on the ground. So if this was Israel that did it, sure, it's tragic, but certainly not surprising. That's why the world has swiftly moved on as if nothing really happened. It's almost like everybody was okay with the suggestion that, oh, Israel may have done it. But there will be outrage now if it's America that was responsible. CNN is reporting that it has sufficient evidence that the attack on the Iranian girls' school was carried out by the U.S. military. Reuters is also reporting that a U.S. investigation points to the U.S. responsibility on that strike on the girls' elementary school. Listen to what, in fact, the various officials in the Trump administration said about this attack on this girls' school. And you will hear Trump, you'll then hear Caroline Leavitt, the spokesperson, and then you'll hear Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of War in the U.S.
There's footage that shows that an American missile strike and a Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility for that strike?
And I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
Did the United States airstrike a girls' elementary school and kill 175 people?
Not that we know of, Sean, and the Department of War is investigating this matter, and I would just tell you very strongly the United States of America does not target civilians, unlike the rogue Iranian regime that targets civilians, that kills children, that has killed thousands of their own people in the past several weeks, and uses propaganda quite effectively, and unfortunately many people in this room have fallen for that propaganda.
Can you give us an update on what the administration knows, what you know now about the reported strike on a girls' school in southern Iran on Saturday?
All I can say is that we're investigating that. We, of course, never target civilian targets, but we're taking a look and investigating that.
So all these officials are still investigating. They're saying that we're still looking into it. I mean, the reason they're looking into it is because they see that there's a possibility the U.S. may have been involved. But these are children we're talking about. If you have no heart for innocent children, I worry. What defines us as humans? Doesn't matter how much you hate the Ayatollah or the regime or administration in Iran, or even in Israel. It doesn't matter that you may hate Benjamin Netanyahu when there are children that are being killed like that? And you want to find justifications for it? What kind of a human are you? How do you justify a 3-year-old being killed like that? And you want to try and justify that? Because that's an innocent child. The US always says its military does not target civilians. And that's primarily because it is strictly prohibited by international humanitarian law. Well, who cares about laws now? Even customary law, which considers such acts to be war crimes. But also the US policy mandates taking precautions to minimize civilian harm. And now we're sitting with 165 odd young innocent women, girls that are gone, killed, taken out, just like that. And the US is likely responsible. What are your thoughts on that? You can give us a call. And then I want us to help each other connect the dots. Listening to the testimony yesterday of Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim mentioning Morgan Hangwani Maumela, I couldn't help but wonder, given what we know so far about this man, Morgan Hangwani Maumela, the allegations that have been mounting against him, how could it be that he is not arrested to this point? Or hasn't even been called to appear before the commission or the ad hoc committee? Because there's a web here, and Ket Matlala at least at this stage, is seen to be at the top of this web, and then the benefits have trickled down, not only to senior officers, but also some business people that Ket Matlala has relationships with. Suleiman Karim is one of them. And now for the first time ever, there is evidence of a transactional relationship between Hangwani Maumela and Ket Matlala. This is for the first time ever officially on the record at the Madlanga Commission. I mean, he will now have to be called to the commission. It wouldn't make sense that the commission doesn't call this man to come and account. But is he even in the country? He's probably likely to put up a fight. But these loans that Suleiman was talking about, very fluid and unexplained, very weird. And he wants us to believe that he was just being used as a middleman to pay Maumela. Let's help each other connect the dots here. What's going on? What is so powerful about this man that we don't even know if the authorities have called him to tell him that you're being investigated, or all we know is they went to his house and they confiscated millions and millions worth of vehicles. But nobody even has a recent picture of him. Where does he live? And maybe that speaks to the power that's concentrated around this man. Maybe he's linked to really powerful people that are making sure that he gets protected. But who could those people be? I don't know. I'm just saying, let's help each other connect the dots. At 10 o'clock, we're going to have a conversation with Fundi Sitebe, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Sizekaya Holdings. This is the new operator of the National Lottery. In fact, they'll become, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the fourth operator of the South African National Lottery. I mean, it's an enormous responsibility to run what is considered to be a national treasure. So what are their plans, and how would you want the National Lottery to change? That's a conversation between 10 and 11 o'clock. I'd like you to join it, please. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to do our World of Work feature. Today we're discussing mobbing at work. You know, that situation where there's a group that quietly and deliberately pushes you out, so they isolate you until you can't take it anymore and you leave. Maybe you can call it group-based workplace harassment. You've got several people, often peers, sometimes even leaders, turning on one person and slowly squeezing them out. I know there's some of you that have experienced that. How do you deal with that? And then at 11:30, we are going to do a health and wellness feature. Today we'll be discussing the importance of immunization for your kids and ensuring that their vaccination is up to date. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement. Morning, 702. I think this is very disheartening for the killing of children. Come on, children are innocent. They are not part of the war. That's what has been happening. It's been happening in Israel, in Palestine. They use children as target practice and then blame Hamas. Now we have a problem. They are doing it. United States just joined the queue. It's disheartening. And it can be anybody's kid.
Morning, Clement. One of the statements that has come up from the IRGC a couple of days ago actually admitted that it is one of their missiles that actually failed upon launch. And who in their right mind would build a girls' elementary school 500 meters from missile launching sites? Are they crazy in their heads? It shows that they don't really care about their citizens. You would never do such a thing in a normal society. Anyway, and secondly, there, Ayatollah Khomeini, have you read his manual that he wrote about how to run their society, that it's okay to marry off 9-year-old girls? So they don't care a darn about their young girls and their young women.
Good morning, Clement. This is Sim. I'm actually, I don't know what to say. I'm actually very shocked that you and there's other people who believe that USA does not target civilians during its invasions. Have you forgotten what they've done in Iraq? I mean, there's massive evidence in Afghanistan. Go and read about an article called the Ruthless Presidency of Barack Obama, where it mentions that during his presidency, in the countries where USA was busy killing people, they actually were targeting men and boys of military going age. So this thing that USA does not target civilians is a fallacy. They do. That's how they operate. They call those collateral damages. Like, there's massive evidence. This is not only an Israel issue. USA does that too.
Yeah, I think you missed the sarcasm there earlier, my friend. I didn't say the US doesn't target civilians. I said a country that always claims it doesn't target civilians. And I was being sarcastic because, of course, we have seen the kind of disaster that the US's intervention, military intervention in several countries has left. And there are civilians that have been targeted there. There's another voice note that came. Yeah, but the Ayatollah didn't care about the girls. Okay, sure. So these poor little humans who are so unfortunate to be born in a country whose leader doesn't care about them are here. So let's just take them out. Let's kill them. Really? Is that the solution? By the way, if it was even the Ayatollah that ordered the killing, or it was Iran, that would still be enough for you and I to be outraged. I don't care much about who's responsible here. I care about civilian lives. Young, mostly so, young children are dead. 165 odd. Gone. Killed. How could you justify that? And I think you probably need to reflect. If your heart doesn't move when you hear that children are dying, whether they're dying in Gaza and being killed and they are innocent, but they are targeted by these airstrikes, so they are being killed in Israel, or they are being killed in Iraq, in Iran, if that doesn't concern you and you still want to come up with all sorts of justifications, my goodness, what are we becoming? What are we willing to justify? It's quite scary where we're going as a world, as a society, just because we've got blind loyalty and we don't understand that two things can exist at the same time. You can support America, but still be outraged at the possibility that they are responsible. You can support Israel and still be outraged that there are young kids that are being killed at the hands of that regime. Oh, wait, we don't call it a regime. You must call it a government or an administration. It's 22 after 9.
Your voice. Your station. Your open line. Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela on 702.
Okay, let's try connect the dots. There's something happening that you and I, as citizens of this country, need to be concerned about. There is a man who seems to be so powerful that even investigative reporters who are so brilliant in this country are unable to get to him or even get to his most recent movements. And I don't think that speaks to the failure of the investigative journalist. I think it speaks to the power of the man that we're talking about. Morgan Hangwani Maumela. Who is this man? We know he lives quite a fleshy lifestyle. What do we know about him? Maybe that's where we should begin. The SIU have attached his assets. He is alleged to be part of a syndicate that looted about 2 billion rand from the Tembisa hospital. I mean, did you see those Lamborghinis? That's the man we're talking about. What else do we know about this man? Well, we know that he is linked to people like Ket Matlala. And you'll find out now as I play you some clips. And please just bear with me because I want to set this up and I want you to also help me. I don't have the answers. I'm saying as a society, as a community, as the 702 family, let's try and connect the dots. What is it about this man that is so difficult to pin? I would have thought the evidence of the SIU is so overwhelming. I would have thought the text messages we have seen that link him to Ket Matlala and the payments Ket Matlala was making to him, we now have evidence of that, and someone who's made those payments as quote-unquote the middleman. I would have thought that by now this man is either arrested or at the very least there's an investigation that is advanced around him, or he's already been called to come and testify at the ad hoc committee or the State Capture Commission. Is he even in the country? Maybe that's what makes it complicated. Can anybody even get a hold of him? Let's begin with the legal counsel for Suleiman Karim yesterday. They seemed to have issues with Karim taking questions about Morgan Hangwani Maumela. In fact, let's listen to what the legal counsel said yesterday at the Madlanga Commission.
The incorrect statement that Mr. Maumela is referred to in the 10-6 notice. If you look at the 10-6 notice, you will see, and I think this is the notice given on 5 December 2025. There have been several notices. This is the last notice that we have on record. 5 December 2025, there is no mention of Mr. Maumela there. People such as Mr. Brown, Mahotsi, etc. are referred to. No mention of Mr. Maumela. There is a reference to Mr. Maumela in the summons, but the summons requires that to be dealt with here and not in the statement. The 10-6 notice pertains to what should be in the statement, and there was nothing relating to Mr. Maumela. But all of that is also, by the way, the Commission knew and had these documents and knew it was going to rely on it. It shouldn't play a cat and mouse game to say, we'll wait and see what you say, and then we'll produce what we have. This is not an adversarial proceeding. It's not an attempt to try and ambush and catch witnesses out. We all know the purpose is fact-finding, and in the spirit of acting in a manner which is transparent and fair, those documents could all have been put up and should have been put up.
So, that's them trying to move around the mention of Hangwani Maumela. Why would the lawyers try to avoid this man being mentioned at the commission? Oh wait, the minute Hangwani Maumela gets mentioned officially at the commission, that would mean the commission would have to call him. So it makes sense. Makes sense why there's always been an attempt to try and avoid this man being mentioned at these commissions, because that would mean he has to come. Well, the horse has bolted. He's been mentioned and he has to come. And what's even worse is that the commission may even recommend that he be investigated for fraud and corruption. Why? Because as you can hear now, Suleiman Karim sent him monies that were coming from Ket Matlala, which could be proceeds of crime, which would make Morgan Maumela culpable.
When you said Morgan sorted, you were referring to a payment of 500,000 rands for the benefit of Mr. Maumela.
That's right.
And that payment was to Lutaga Trading Enterprise.
That's right.
Who asked you to pay Mr. Maumela?
Mr. Matlala.
And who asked you to pay Mr. Maumela through Lutaga Trading Enterprise?
Mr. Maumela.
Mr. Maumela asked you to pay Lutaga Trading Enterprise?
Yes.
When did you speak to Mr. Maumela to receive that instruction?
It was before we got that payment. He'd already been talking to me, saying that he has spoken to Mr. Matlala, and that he asked Mr. Matlala that Mr. Matlala needs to pay him his money, and Mr. Matlala said to him he's busy talking to me.
And so, when were these conversations that you had with Mr. Maumela?
So sometime just before the payments, Feb. It's a few days before the payment.
And he said to you, Mr. Matlala owes me money.
Mr. Matlala approached me and said, look, I need you to pay Mr. Maumela. He wanted me to pay him a big amount, and I said, how do I pay him half of this money? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, you're not paying me, but now you want me to pay 750 of this money. He says, no, Mr. Maumela needs the money. Can you do this? I said, look, I can't do 750. And I then agreed to do 500 because we knew that there were more invoices coming, or he knew, I should say. Let me rephrase that. Mr. Matlala said to me there's more invoices that are still owed to him, and then he will then top me up on the next payment. But in total, he wanted me to give Mr. Maumela 750,000.
And he ended up giving Mr. Maumela about 500,000 rand because he said, I couldn't give him the 750,000 rand. There's a possibility that that 500,000 rand that flowed, in fact, there was over 1 million that was paid to Salim. Was it 2.5 or 1 point something million? That was paid to Suleiman Karim. He takes some of that money and he sends it to Morgan Hangwani Maumela. And Mr. Karim, who testified yesterday, wants us to believe that no, Ket Matlala said he owes Maumela money. So he asked me to take some of the money he sent me to give to Maumela. They probably think we're children. Like, we're not smart enough to see what is happening here. At the time, it's possible that, remember, before the SAPS tender was cancelled, about 50 million, there was some millions that were sent to Medicare 24, Ket Matlala's company. And then money starts moving around. So the question you and I have to ask is, if, let's say, Ket Matlala was paying Hangwani Maumela what belongs to him because he may have assisted maybe with this SAPS contract, how did he assist? Who does Hangwani Maumela know who is so powerful to probably have influenced a tender in favor of Ket Matlala's company? There are a few clips I want to play to you that will probably help us understand why this man is so powerful and why he's being protected. We'll do that after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. It's 9:31. Sfiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Standard Bank has denied claims of irregular and unauthorized deductions of clients' funds. In a post on X, a client alleges that her mother's pension money was transferred to multiple accounts without her consent. This has sparked public outrage, with other social media users coming out and making similar claims of a fraud syndicate going after exorbitant amounts of money. And emergency services have recovered all 4 bodies swept away by floods in Limpopo. 5 people were traveling in Sibayeng on Sunday when their car overturned on a bridge that was overflowing with water. Only 1 person managed to escape and call for help. And a Bulgarian man wanted by Interpol is expected back in the Wynberg Magistrates Court today, where a ruling will be made on whether his arrest in Cape Town was lawful. Stanislav Staminov was arrested nearly 2 weeks ago after an Interpol red notice was issued. He was convicted by a Romanian court in 2019 and sentenced to 16 years in prison for his role in a drug trafficking syndicate. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, traveling in the city of Tshwane, there's a bumper-to-bumper traffic. In fact, a stop and go. This is in Centurion along the N14 North. There's an accident reported right near Littleton Road. And then if you continue making your way towards Euphius Road, we've got roadworks that are causing delays along this route. So please be on the lookout and try to avoid. You still have the R101 to use as an alternative, or even the N1 North towards areas like the CBD as well as Ferry Lane. And then if you're traveling on the R21 North, we've got roadworks taking place in the Tembisa area right near Olifantsfontein Road, causing delays. There's also queuing traffic on the M1 South. This is between Marlborough Drive and Corlett Drive. An accident has been reported between these 2 points, and there's still queuing traffic along several roads within the Sandton CBD, like Catherine Street, Grayston Drive, and even South Road. If you are traveling on the M1 South towards the Joburg CBD, do expect heavy traffic volumes approaching Carr Street. Roadworks are causing these delays. There's also queuing traffic due to more roadworks along the N3 North just as you approach Van Buren Road. Please be on the lookout there. More updates at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
There are claims by taxi operators that the SAPS is sitting with information as to who is behind all of extortion to the tune of 13 million rand.
I don't believe SAPS is completely clean in the process for this. I mean, currently there's a member of the actual taxi violence unit that himself has or owns taxis, something that's directly in contradiction with their own regulations.
Ian Cameron is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police in the National Assembly.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
So you thought you were building a business in this economy, but day by day, somehow it grew. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore. It's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
Baba Black Sheep. Have you any wool? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. More than 3 bags full. We think beyond today, tomorrow, more. Look up, look far ahead. We may choose to leave the herd. There's greener grass where fewer care to tread. Baba Black Sheep, proof of what we do. Better for clients for over 20 years. Courage, we hold the course for you. Baba Black Sheep, if you want more wool, it takes black sheep thinking. Camissa Asset Management. Invest different. Camissa Asset Management is a licensed FSP.
I heard she's got a recruiter team working 24/7.
That one. She has a secret supply of talent.
I knew it. She's definitely keeping a secret from us.
Nothing mysterious, guys. It's SA Youth, South Africa's largest youth online recruitment platform. Fast to post, effortless to use, and effective every time.
Recruit on the portal to potential. sayouth.co.za. Powering South Africa's youth workforce.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
in the conflict in the Middle East. When does this start to have a big impact on our inflation? I suppose it's as simple as saying the day fuel prices go up dramatically.
If you look at the lower end of the market, as soon as those fuel prices go up at the gate, those taxi prices go up immediately. Also, logistics companies, transport costs all go up immediately, and they pass it on to the companies that they do the logistics.
Feroz Basis, the head of Global Emerging Markets.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show, Stephen Curtis, is brought to you by ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking. Trade powers Africa's growth, and businesses that succeed are those able to manage risk, optimize liquidity, and move confidently across markets. ABSA Corporate and Investment Banking helps enable your trade flows for growth. ABSA is a registered FSP. T's and C's apply.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
23 minutes before 10 o'clock. We're trying to connect the dots around Mongen Hangwani Maumela. By the way, I see at the Madlanga Commission now, the lawyers for Suleiman Karim, who has basically now revealed that there is a possibility that he may have sent proceeds of crime that moved from Ket Matlala. He was a conduit that sent that money to Hangwani Maumela because Matlala told him that he owes Hangwani money. His lawyers are now arguing this morning at the Madlanga Commission for another postponement. Why? I mean, this man has tried so many tricks to avoid appearing before the commission, and I think now we understand why. Now they're trying to stop his appearance. Once again, they are trying to ask for a postponement. On what basis? We're trying to make sense of Hangwani Maumela. Who is he? Who's protecting him? Because it's just not making sense. It is just not making sense that he is still not, his recent pictures are not splashed around in the papers. Where is he? Is he even in the country? The lawyers are now saying, representing Suleiman Karim, that they didn't have enough time with some of the documents that were presented by the commission. Remember, they were arguing earlier, that clip I played you around Mongen Maumela. They were trying to argue that you didn't really give us this information about this man, and now he's going to be mentioned here. It's a little too late now. We know what's happened. The commission is even considering recommending that Mongen Maumela, together with Suleiman Karim and Ket Matlala, be investigated for fraud and corruption and money laundering. Now, listen, this is, remember I told you earlier, 500,000 moved from Ket through Suleiman Karim to Maumela. And then there was another 250,000 rand. So in total, 750,000 rand moved from Ket to Maumela. But that's not the only time that this Suleiman Karim had business relationships with Mongen Maumela. There are other millions that have exchanged hands. Listen to this.
Why did Ziggy pay Lutaga 42,427,000 over the period December 2023 to November 2024?
Can I elaborate on that, Council? Can I elaborate?
Can you?
Elaborate, can I?
Please do.
Like I said, I met Mr. Maumela in 2022. We did a lot of work on my house together. We became friendly. Mr. Maumela was a gentleman. He was very helpful. Subsequent to that, we became friends. In about 2023, I was discussing a business idea with him going into a mining project, into a wash plant and a crusher plant with a mine. That was the idea that I had, which I shared with him. Mr. Maumela was quite keen on investing with me, and I said to him, okay, it's fine. If it makes sense and you feel it's good for you, we can go ahead and do this transaction. I then presented a business proposal to him. We then agreed we'll call this vehicle Chrome Core. So the vehicle was going to be called Chrome Core, and one of my entities would own 50% of it, and one of his entities would own 50% of the vehicle. We needed to raise money because obviously mining is quite cash intensive and it needs a lot of cash to operate. We then agreed we'd both each raise 50 million and 5 million capital. We agreed on that. Mr. Maumela then said to me, I said to him, look, I will raise my part, you go and raise your part. I then asked him, because he was taking a bit of time and I wanted to move with the project because this was my idea. He then said to me, he's going to sell an asset. Once he sells the asset, he'd be able to fund the project.
Yeah, and I want to speed it up because he's speaking so slow there. So, and then Hangwani Maumela sold his assets, and then he sent him about 40 million rand or thereabout, or 50, and then for this business venture. And then Morgan came back to him. So here's what's interesting. Suleiman Karim then sends how much to Morgan? Karim then sends about 40 million or so, or 56 million. Sends 56 million to Morgan Hangwani Maumela. Now the commission wants to know, what was this money about? This now is his explanation. That no. This man had sent me some 40 million or so for this business venture, but now he was in trouble and he needed some money, and he came back to me and said, please send me back that money. Yeah. So apparently that's why Karim had now sent this 56 million to Hangwani, because Hangwani said, I don't know, I'm broke, or there's something happening with my assets. I need some money. I need cash now. That's how the money then moved from Karim to Hangwani Maumela. Now, who is Hangwani Maumela associated with? Do you remember when we spoke to Serge Kabonge on the show? He came here to talk to us. Serge Kabonge, if you don't know, is I suppose a businessman. Do you want to call him that? In Sandton. He's mostly known in and around Gauteng. He is quite close to Shadrach Sibia. Stay with me. Serge Kabonge said on the radio on this show that he is close friends with Shadrach Sibia. Who is Shadrach Sibia? He's the Deputy National Police Commissioner who is now suspended and is appearing between ad hoc and the Madlanga Commission for his alleged relationship with Ket Matlala. What did Serge Kabonge tell us on the show about Morgan Maumela? This is what he said when he was on this show. Have you tried to speak to her, because you said you guys are close friends?
Look, I did not try to talk to her. She tried to call me on July. I didn't want to answer a call because I don't want to socialize myself around Teboro.
But at the time, she had not made the claim that you
No,
were
we were
involved.
talking, we were okay.
So why did you avoid her calls?
No, I did not avoid her because we were talking every day. The things that make me to stop talking to her because she want to control me who I'm talking to.
What do you mean?
Yeah, she's telling me that I must not talk to Kate, I must not talk to Morgan, and then I must not talk to few people. I don't see a reason why. And then I'm talking to them on the business direction.
So,
I'm not talking to them to anything that is out of business.
So, he's talking to Kat, he's talking to Morgan, based on business arrangements and nothing outside of business, which means Serge Kabonge does business with Morgan, Hangwani Maumela, and Ket Matlala. Morgan and Ket do business together. Ket is linked to Shadrach Sibia. Serge Kabonge, who is doing business with these two guys, is close friends with Shadrach Sibia. Okay. That sounds interesting. Serge Kabonge was the last person to see the ex-girlfriend of Ket Matlala. Remember, Ket Matlala is in jail now for the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend, Tebogo Tobejani. Who was Tebogo Tobejani with on the night there was an attempt on in her life with Serge Kabonge. She believes, Tebogo, this is not me, Tebogo Tobejane believes that Serge Kabonge, this businessman who's close to Morgan and Kat, and Kat, is the one who told Kat where she was, which then resulted in Kat then approving that, go, take a hit on this woman. This is the version of Tebogo Tobejane. So Serge Kabonge, when he came here, he wanted to defend himself, to say, no, I'm not involved in the attempted murder of this woman, but this woman also wanted me to stop talking to Morgan and Kat, and I couldn't because these are people I do business with. Now, enter President Cyril Ramaphosa. What did he tell us about Morgan Hangwani Maumela?
I go on my walks. Now, in 2024, so it should be known, because Mr. Magwenya only focused on this photograph. In 2024, I am walking on that same street, and a person comes out of this house and he greets me. And as I often meet people, I ask them, who are you? He says, I am Hangwani Maumela. And that's how he introduces himself to me. And I say, so you are the Maumela who is putting my name into disrepute. And he smiles away. And now I've encountered this person, and I walk away, and I walk to my home. And then in 2024, on the 26th of December, I am walking with my daughter, who loves walking too, on the same street. And there this young man comes out and he says, hello, Ramaphosa. My mother is here. Can you say hello to her? And I say, who is she? He says, it's Hangwani Maumela. Now, when I was at school in Papuri High School with my then wife, Hope Mudau, her brother was also there. And later I got to know that this Mboneni and this, my wife's brother, my former wife's brother, they hooked up. And as they hooked up, they had a child. And this is now Hangwani Maumela, whom I did not know. But I know his mother because we were at school together. So he says, my mother is here. Can you say hello to her? And she is coming out of the yard towards the main gate. And then she's wearing a gown, a morning gown. And I immediately say, I can't allow her to come into the street with a morning gown. And I go towards the gate and I greet her. And I say, how are you? How have you been? That's the sum total of it all.
Okay, that's the sum total of it all. So if you have seen Morgan's house, did you see how high those walls are? Like, it's really high walls. You can't see what's happening inside and you can't see what's happening outside. In fact, people who live in neighborhoods like that don't usually just open the gate to get what? Trying to get fresh air into the yard? People who live in areas like that don't just open the gate to see, oh, who's passing there? I wonder. So how did they see the president walk? And then the guy comes out, hey, I'm Morgan Maumela, introduces himself like that. And then the next time, somehow maybe Morgan now had mustered the times the president takes walks, because the second time, mom is ready in a gown to meet the president. I am not suggesting here that the president is related to this man. I think it's very clear that it's the president's former wife whose brother had a child with this woman and then they gave birth to Morgan Maumela. The story just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm bringing all of these clips and stories because I'm trying to figure out what could be going on here. Why is this man so powerful that he's still not arrested? Why is he so powerful that we can't get confirmation that there's an investigation that is advanced around him? Why is he so powerful that even people who appear at the commission are so scared to want to get into details about him. And they try every single trick to try and postpone their hearings or to even do their testimonies in camera. And I suspect that's because they were going to have to mention this man because the commission has evidence and WhatsApp messages that shows the conversation about Morgan and the monies that has flown from him to him from Ket Matlala. This man has been accused of being part of a syndicate that stole 2 billion rand from Tembisa Hospital. And now we see that he may have received proceeds of crime from Ket Matlala. And he's still roaming the streets free. Now you tell me how that makes sense. After the break, I'm going to go to your calls and your WhatsApps. It's 8 minutes before 10.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
Floyd Brink, City of Johannesburg city manager. We're constantly blaming the politicians for the mess that we see. Are we not letting our officials off the hook?
If you look at the decay of our infrastructure and maintenance, that's not linked to any form of politics. When there's a pothole or when there's water-related issues, people are not interested in what political party is in charge. They would want to see that burst pipe being repaired. Pipes do not ask who is in the coalition. It's not interested in who's now in the caucus. It's got nothing to do with that.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Zansi, it's raining millions with Powerball and Powerball Plus at 124 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Tuesday. Don't delay. Make it rain lots of cash this March by playing Powerball for 84 million rand or Powerball Plus for 40 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in-store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app or cell phone banking. Panda Pusha Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
When it comes to protecting your workforce, trust the workwear brand that has been protecting workers for over 150 years, Sweetall. Sweetall has overalls and uniform solutions for every industry, so your team is safe, comfortable, and ready to tackle any challenge. Visit our Boksburg showroom, shop A1 Atlas Road, Westwood, Boksburg, or go to sweetall.com today. Sweetall, we never let you down. Superior protective workwear since 1871.
Did you know that you have the power to ensure your daughter is fully protected from cervical cancer when she grows up? Yes, protecting a daughter from cervical cancer is absolutely possible. And all that you need to do is ensure that your daughter gets the HPV vaccine at the age of 9. The HPV vaccine gives your daughter the best possible protection against cervical cancer and can prevent her from becoming part of the statistics. This message is brought to you by the Department of Health.
Success isn't always what you see on paper. Sometimes it's those overlooked skills like resilience, empathy, and the quiet strength it takes to show up every single day in celebration of these invisible success codes that women hold. 702 and Momentum bring you the series edition on 702 Afternoons with Relebohile Mabucha. From parenting and wellness to money matters and mental health, the series edition is a deep dive into the topics shaping your everyday life. Don't miss it. Tuesdays from 1:30 p.m. Brought to you by Momentum's She Owns Her Success on 702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
5 minutes before 10.
Morning, Madi Meja, Ngwagwe Jovek. Madi Meja, on the issue of Morgan, I think you are right. Morgan is being protected. He is being protected and we don't know who's protecting him. And the person who's protecting him is very powerful. He makes sure that they can't touch that Morgan guy. And you're right. Probably maybe skip the country. He's nowhere to be found. Huh? They should have arrested him long time ago because they confiscated those super powerful cars and then they leave him. Most those things are proceeds of crime. He committed crime, so he must be arrested. Nah, man, we can't go on like this as a country. And the justice system, I don't understand. So the SIU doesn't have power to arrest. The SIU doesn't have power to arrest Mali Major. Nah, man, we can't go on like this. Have a great one.
Good morning, Clement.
It sounds like you are really amazing in connecting the dots. Good work. Wow. Thanks for a lovely show. Bye.
My name Clement is Veronica from Sprayview. You know, I think we must not stop talking about Maumela until he comes out, wherever he's hiding. I phoned Africa 2 weeks ago on 702 morning breakfast show, asking about Maumela. He tried to see if maybe he could find anything, and then he said he'll come back later if he picks up where he is. He hasn't come back. Obviously, like you said, he's hiding. Maybe he's hiding, but we must talk about him on 702 every day until he comes out wherever he is. We cannot. He destroyed Tembisa Hospital. There's nothing left in Tembisa Hospital, and he's still enjoying his life. I'm very, very livid about this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
What also hurts me deeply is the fact that there is a whistleblower here that was killed. Babita Deokaran was killed, murdered, because she was exposing the rot of corruption. The very same matter through which the SIU was able to confiscate these assets of Hangwani Maumela, Babita Deokaran had already told us, had already flagged these transactions. Debogo Tobejani, who is the ex-girlfriend of Ket Matlala, seems to believe that Ket Matlala was somehow involved in the murder of Babita Deokaran. I read that was it in the Sunday World or in the Sunday papers though, sometime last year. That's what she wanted to tell the police, or she's already told the police in a statement. Could it be that we are dealing here, and I don't know, and maybe the police are still investigating, could it be that we're dealing with people that have also taken out Babita Deokaran? In fact, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday about how is it that we don't even have documentaries, like a short docu-series, an investigative series about this man? I mean, News 24 has done an incredible job at trying to connect those dots, but I think there's space and opportunity to still do a lot of work around this man, and maybe investigations are still continuing. And this person said to me yesterday that apparently the guy is quite dangerous. So some people probably are scared to really report about him, to investigate him, but we can't live in a country like that where we are held hostage and we are unable to ask these critical questions because, oh my God, I'm scared for our safety. Something is up here. And I hope our law enforcement officers can get to the bottom of it.
Nah, man. This Hangwani Maumela guy, I think he's the boss of all these guys here. Abu Ket Matlala and Abu Suleiman Karim, they're just runners, man. No. Arnold in Glen.
Good morning, Clement. When it comes to Hangwani Maumela, all I can say is you need to be very careful. He's one of the most powerful people in this country, and trust me, there's a reason why people are not arresting him or nothing's happening there. So, yeah, there's a whole underworld that most of society is not aware of. And I mean, these guys, they really, really, really control a lot of things in the background. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that nothing's happening. Anonymous from Centurion.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I am Sviso Zulu. We begin on the East Rand, where scores of school children have been injured in a crash in Boksburg this morning. Emergency services say a collision happened between a bakkie and a minibus taxi transporting pupils on the R554 in Rondebolt. Authorities say all injured occupants were stabilized at the scene before being transported to various hospitals. The City of Ekurhuleni Sticky McDonald has urged motorists to be cautious on the road.
The impact resulted in multiple casualties with injuries ranging from critical to minor.
Firefighters and paramedics were on scene within minutes to secure the area and begin triage. Remarkably, despite the severity of the collision, no fatalities were reported at the scene.
In Limpopo, emergency services crews there have recovered all 4 bodies that were swept away by floods. 5 people were traveling in Sibayeng on Sunday when their car overturned on a bridge that was overflowing. Only 1 person managed to escape and call for help. Police spokesperson Malisa Ledwaba.
During the operation, the submerged vehicle was located and 3 additional bodies were recovered. The deceased were identified as Suobi Dikhal, aged 33, Betty Mukukwan, aged 22, and Charlotte De.
Standard Bank has denied claims of irregular and unauthorized deductions of clients' funds. In a post on X, a client alleges that her mother's pension money was transferred to multiple accounts without her consent. This has sparked public outrage, with other social media users coming forward with similar claims of a fraud syndicate going after exorbitant amounts of money. Chabuli Lembata reports.
In a written response, Standard Bank says the claims are inaccurate. The bank says the post relates to a matter that happened in 2011 and was investigated, resolved and closed in 2023. The statement further adds that the customer had also launched a complaint with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, which supported the findings of the investigations by the bank. It says the transactions were legitimate and correctly processed, and the FSCA found no evidence of fraud, unauthorized activity, or bank errors in this specific case. The bank says it works closely with regulators to ensure customers are protected from financial harm. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
And a Bulgarian man wanted by Interpol is expected back in the Wynberg Magistrates Court today, where a ruling will be made on whether his arrest in Cape Town was lawful. Stanislav Staminov was arrested nearly 2 weeks ago after an Interpol red notice was issued. He was convicted by a Romanian court in 2019 and sentenced to 16 years in prison for his role in a drug trafficking syndicate. However, his lawyer, William Booth, is challenging the legality of the arrest, arguing that Romanian authorities did not formally submit an extradition request needed to secure an arrest warrant. Tutuzelo Nena reports.
The NPA insists South African police acted within the law when they arrested Stanislav Staminov. Prosecutors says while he may have been in the country for about 16 years, his legal position changed once the arrest was made. The state is also awaiting formal documents from Romania, which must be submitted within about 40 days before the extradition process can proceed. The NPA has indicated it will oppose bail if Staminov applies for release. The magistrate is expected to deliver her ruling following submissions from both the defense and the state. Dutuzelo Nene, Eyewitness News.
Gold's trading at $5,178.54 an ounce. The rand is at 16.24 to the dollar, 21.89 to the pound, 18.94 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $93.59 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the N12 West. This is just as you head towards Bedford View. There's an accident reported there. It's right after the R24 merge. Please be on the lookout there. There's also queuing traffic on the Mark 1 North. This is between the double-decker section and Car Street due to roadworks.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: scores of school children have been injured in a crash in Boksburg this morning.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702, and thank you for your contributions on the 702 open line. And I'm sorry that I wasn't able to take a lot of the calls and the WhatsApps today, but as you are aware, I was trying to frame the conversation and to try and make sense of what's going on around this individual, Morgan Hangwani Maumela. I hope you appreciate that, which is why I thought we should bring in all these different clips just to remind you of who this man is and who he is linked to and he is supposedly close to, because then maybe that gives us a picture of why he's so protected and why to this day he's still not in jail, or the police have not even confirmed that there's an investigation that is at an advanced stage. To this day, the ad hoc committee hasn't called him. The commission, the Madlanga Commission, hasn't called him. And I'm hoping that now that he has been officially mentioned on the record as having possibly received proceeds of crime, he is going to be called to appear at the Madlanga Commission. Just a quick update. His lawyer, the lawyers of Suleiman Karim, who mentioned Hangwani Maumela yesterday, have been trying to get another postponement from the Madlanga Commission. It's so bizarre. They've tried and failed several times, even went to court, failed, and now they're trying again today, after trying again even yesterday. So there was a bit of an interaction, a hectic one, between the chair of the commission and the lawyers for Suleiman Karim, to a point that the chair of the commission refused to accept the apology of the legal counsel because they seemed to indicate that the chair of the commission said something that he didn't say. And just yesterday, they had to apologize again because of the way they treated lawyers of the Madlanga Commission. So it's really getting hectic there. But after 12 o'clock, I think we're going to have a sense of whether or not they will get a postponement. It's 8 minutes now after 10.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
Right now, we start our conversation with Fundi Sitebe, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Sizekaya Holdings. This is the new operator for the National Lottery, and she's joining us in studio. As you know, this will be I think the fourth, if I'm not mistaken, operator of the South African National Lottery. It will be an enormous responsibility to run what we really consider a national treasure. So how do they plan to do things? What changes are they thinking about? And I want to know from you as well, and I'm sure they would also want to hear from you, what you think has worked and what you think could be changed. How can they improve the National Lottery? You can join this conversation by calling us on 011-883-0702 or send us a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Fundi, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Top of the morning, Clement. Thank you for having me.
Have you guys been sleeping? I mean, the 1st of June is slowly approaching.
It's not slowly. It's 82 days away, Clement. So sleep is overrated at this point in time because there are literally so many moving parts to ensuring a very successful and seamless transition on the 1st of June. From a systems, processes, people, we've been busy. We continue to be busy up until that last day.
Okay, let's just start from the beginning for listeners who may not be aware how Sizekaya came about. Just walk us through how the consortium was put together and what gave you the confidence to go after a contract of this magnitude.
So I think maybe the story probably began about 3-4 years ago. So obviously a tender of this magnitude requires time, and it requires, a concerted effort by the NLC to put it down into paper and to really put down what the requirements are for people to respond to. So the consortium led by Gold Rush Holdings or Gold Rush Group, which is a listed entity that has been in the gaming sector in South Africa for many, many years. So they led the consortium, bringing in the different elements. And I think what's important is when Gold Rush was at the stages of putting this bid together, it was very important for them, apart from obviously putting a value proposition that is compelling, but really put together the strongest team possible. So in terms of the shareholding of Sizekaya, in terms of the consortium, 50% is Gold Rush, and then there's a couple of smaller entities or other shareholders that range between 10%, 7%. But I think what's also incredibly important, Clement, was there was a concerted effort to ensure that we're also including shareholders that have never been in the space before, but they bring different aspects. So we've got chartered accountants, we've got young black professionals as some of these shareholders within Sizakaya, and collectively we really believe that the strengths that everybody puts together and brings to the table are what really made us a compelling choice for the NLC as Sizakaya itself. We'll still get into the products and some of the innovations, but at the core it had to be the right people at the right time, putting together the right value proposition, the right product for South Africa.
So what can you maybe also help us understand, like the operational checklist, if you will? I mean, I imagine there's legislation you need to be aligned with. You spoke about other systems, machines. I think I read somewhere that have you worked with a Chinese company to help with? So there's a lot that's going on. What's the operational checklist before we get to the 1st of June?
So the operational checklist, Clement, essentially started when the award was given to us. And that is because the NLC, being the regulator, and because the NLC are the ones who hold us accountable to those license conditions, we had to have, project milestones that gave them the comfort that come 1 June, as I said, it's not as if you just switch on the lights on 1 June. There's a whole lot of things that go into the background. So we had those license conditions that we had to adhere to, non-negotiables. So at a very, very kind of high level, we had to obviously speak to the systems. They were already in the tender in our bid process, but the NLC needed, confirmation and comfort around the fact that, our partnering with Genlot in China, which is the biggest sort of technology partner for the largest lottery in China, right? So it's no small player in the system. So that's who's doing our back end, our systems side of it. So what they are running is what's called the CGS, the Central Gaming System, where all your numbers are kind of generated and where you play as a player. That's the system you interact with. Equally, they also helped us with the lottery terminals. We've got a number of new terminals, that are, kind of aimed at ensuring that what we aimed to deliver from an innovation, from a games perspective, that it's the right machines, it's the right terminals. And obviously, with the passage of time, they have to be relevant and extremely user-friendly. So they helped us with that. But over and above that, you've got responsible gaming that you have to adhere to. You've got the codes of good practice. You have to go out and start to interact with the retailers. And here, the tricky part, Clement, is the retailers are currently obviously dealing with the current incumbent, the operator. So you're almost running a parallel system where the retailers are saying, guys, we're still running this system and we're still running the lottery to the best of our abilities with the operator at hand now. But then we come and we say, hang on, there will be this change. So we need to start thinking about a very smooth parallel process in which we walk this journey through with you, start to implement some of the systems, start to train you so that you have an understanding of what's going to be different. So like I say, multifacets of things that have been happening, the cogs in the wheel, but a very, very interesting piece of machinery.
Okay, and the big question in our listeners' minds is, how are you going to be different to how Ituba has been running the National Lottery? I know as Sizakaya, you've spoken about expanding the accessibility through banking apps, retail, terminals, handheld devices. You're promising more frequent jackpots. How will the day-to-day lottery experience actually change for ordinary South Africans?
So let me break it down into two categories. There's obviously the channels in terms of how each player will interact with the product. And as you rightly say, we have signed up a lot more retailers than we had before. So already that typical bricks and mortar model is expanding. You'll start to see more lottery terminals in a lot more retail stores, whether it's the big chains or some of the independent or some of the smaller stores. So I think that's the first thing that's important. So greater accessibility. But I think what's also important, you've mentioned that, we call it the B2B channels on the banking app. We have brought in more banks that we partnered with. There was a X amount currently, but now we've increased that number of banks that will be carrying the lottery product on their platform or on their app. So that's incredibly exciting as well. We have handheld devices that, as part of our partnership with Genlot in China, who have a subsidiary, Genlot SA. And that was, by the way, I pause on that. That was also deliberate, that the money that is generated within South Africa stays within South Africa. So that was a big part of our strategy of localization. So whilst we use Genlot China, there's a Genlot SA, and everything then is kind of operated. And that's a first in South African history, because all along, a lot of the technology partners were taking money out of the country and going into kind of, let's say, the host country. So from a channel perspective, we have these handheld devices that are going to be available in, the rural areas, the township areas, because some of the stores might not necessarily have the space to put in a big terminal. So we've definitely made it a lot more accessible and a lot more easier for people to access. So that's on the channel front. Then obviously from a product perspective, I think we're going to need another hour. Some really, really amazing innovations around that, Clement. But what I can say is, previously you'd see a lot, long queues in the retail stores. People are there, numbers, etc. So what we've done is we've brought in a new innovation with the QR code of a data-free site. So if you as Clement want to either pick your numbers and then just go and scan and then get your coupon generated, you can now. You don't have to be standing at the till. And secondly, if you want to check your numbers, because that also takes time. You have a ticket, you're not sure if you've won, you're not sure, these are the numbers. Instead of giving the ticket, you still can to the teller. We've also made it easily available. And the journey now sits a lot with the consumer, with the player. You can now scan your ticket on a QR code and immediately you'll know if you've got a winner or you don't have a winner. So we're starting to just deal with some of those headaches in terms of traffic, in terms of, long queues. And over and above that, yes, I think the jackpot is a very, very, very important part of this, because we play to win the jackpot. And currently at this point in time, you see what's called jackpot fatigue. We've gone for weeks. The jackpot gets bigger, but it just keeps on rolling over and rolling over. And some of the innovations that we've put forward is cascading that jackpot so that we start to make it more meaningful, more frequently. And players can start to feel that this is actually attainable. We've also played around with some of the odds. I can't go into the details around that, but we've decreased the odds and making sure that at least it's a little bit more attainable than it was. And that's the mechanism of the game design that we truly took time in putting together. So channel, product, exciting, and of course, last but not least, the live lotto draws coming back on screen. It was important for us to bring that just to show the transparency, apart from the fact that it's such a, South African tradition sitting around, the TV
how long has
watching.
it been now that it hasn't been around? It's been quite a while.
I think even before COVID, right?
Yeah,
And what that did, Clement, was I guess consumers started doubting to a certain extent the transparency. Are the people sitting in some dark corner spewing out numbers? And we're saying that's actually not the case. There's a number of systems, and we're bringing back that live lottery draw for the excitement, but most importantly, education and transparency to show the South African players that, this is something that's very attainable, and it's a system with checks and balances that is for the South African player.
That's exciting. I know there was a lot of debate in recent years from people who play the lotto, especially on social media, who've been calling for those live broadcasts to come back to, as you say, increase that issue of transparency. Let's talk about responsible play. About the proliferation of online gambling and how that has wrecked societies. As Sizekaya, how much of what you do is also influenced by the need to ensure there is responsible play and you take that responsibility seriously?
And I guess in the context of where we are as South Africans, Clement, it's such a pivotal perspective, right? Responsible play and ensuring that people are not over indebted and people are just not getting into trouble. So from our perspective, I think from responsible play is embedded in operations. So the typical standard, not for sale to pay, persons under the age of 18. So we really work with our retailers in making sure that when somebody comes to the counter, retailer or the teller, you have the right to ask for age, you have age verification, etc. But I think also over and above that, we've got, the support channels that have to be in place. If you feel that you have a problem, we have that responsible play helpline that you can reach out to. But I think what's important, because we are also emphasizing on omni-channel. So part of what we're building is a value proposition, digital value proposition, right? To say that you can also play on the app, that the lottery app that we're going to have. And inside there as well, there's checks and balances. For example, right now, when you try and play the lottery on a banking app, there's cutoff times, right? And I think we're the only ones as the lottery that have that have those checks and balances. So we're going to continue with that. Over and above that, even with our own app, we're putting in checks and balances that say, hang on, Clement has been playing for 5 hours nonstop. Let's put in a mechanism that warns him, and that then starts to make him aware that continuously you could be finding yourself in a problem. So there are a number of those. But over and above that, we have to subscribe to the National Lotteries Act. And as the NLC being the custodian of that, like I say, checks and balances, they equally hold us accountable in terms of those stats and making sure that the health of the player is always at the core of what we offer.
Yeah. I want to, and by the way, I see your questions coming through. We'll get to them after the headlines, I promise. I just want to take out some of the key questions I have for Fundi, and then she's all yours. So you can call us on 011-883-0702 if you've got questions or some inputs or some suggestions for the new operator of the National Lottery. You can also send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. I want to talk a little bit about the contributions to the National Lottery Distribution Trust Fund. What is your thinking as Sizekaya around that, especially because there's been a lot of reports, disturbing ones, about how money that was intended to benefit communities didn't end up benefiting communities? What checks and balances then do you put in place so that people who are playing the lotto know that actually that money goes to like good causes? They're changing lives, and it's not going to people that are politically connected or connected to people who are running the foundation.
So maybe let me also answer it on two facets, right? Let me just start with the pure numbers. So if you as a player purchase a ticket of 100 rands, we must break down how that 100 rands is spent or distributed, right? So already of that 100 rands, 25% is ring-fenced and already goes into the good causes. And I'll get into the distribution of that. Of that, we then take 50 to 53%, so 50 rands to 53 rands of that has to go into a pool, because that's how the jackpot is made up of, right? So we put that into let's call it the jackpot pool. The retailers that are currently selling our lottery products are entitled to a 6% commission. So 6 rands of that must go into the retailers for their effort, for their space, etc. And then lastly, operating costs, which are between 15 to 18%, that go to Sizekaya to ensure that the systems are in place, that the lottery continuously is running transparently, efficiently, etc. Like any business has an operating cost. So 15 to 18 rands of that then comes through to us. And then obviously tax being 1%. So already that gives you a feel of how that's broken down. And I needed to just take us through that breakdown, because then at the end of the day, then it then becomes, well, what then happens of the 25 rands Fundi that you've mentioned of the good causes? So what then happens, we as an operator legislatively are required to take that through to the NLC and then to the NLDTF. The NLDTF and the NLC are constructed or are the ambit of the Minister of Trade and Industry. So he is the one that appoints, and within that constitution of that board and the trust and the NLC, the good causes are therefore distributed from there. So right now we know that the lottery is South Africa's largest philanthropic contributor. So, and I'm not going to sit here and be naive and say it hasn't been a problem. It has been a problem, and South Africans have the right to feel that that something was wrong with the system. But having been involved in the lottery, over the last year or so, just kind of, they've done a lot of work. The SIU, all that investigation, I think is starting to clear a little bit some of the processes and ensure that the checks and balances are in place. There's, the commissioner at the NLC has done a superb job with her team in really ensuring that those trust, the trust is built again, the checks and balances. But that is purely the ambit of the NLC and the NLDTF.
Which separates you as Sizekaya. Just explain though, because now I'm getting confused. NLC, the difference between the NLC and NLDTF? Isn't that the same thing?
It is, but it isn't.
Okay.
So the NLC is an agency of the DTI, right?
Okay.
So they are the ones that make sure that day to day we are responsible, held accountable, and make sure, that they are entrusted as, part of the country's mandate to ensure that we have a clear, very, very good lottery that's running. And then you've got the NLDTF, which is I forgot what the acronym stands for, but they are the one that they distribute. That's the trust fund that distributes on behalf of the NLC. So whilst NLC, let's call it, lack of a better word, collects, they then pass on the money to the NLDTF. And the NLDTF is then the ones that then, contribute or distribute for sports, arts, culture, etc., all those good causes.
Yeah. Are there still any legal issues on your table? I know that there was a court ruling that came up and said government can't really extend Ituba's contract by another 12 months. But do you have any legal issues to still sort out before the 1st of June, or that's been dealt with, it's out of the wind?
It'll continue. As you started in your preamble to say this is the 4th license, every single license that's been awarded has always gone into litigation. So I think it would be naive of us to say that we didn't expect it. But like I say, really emboldened by the fact that we know that our value proposition was a good and excellent, value proposition. However, there is a current court challenge that's before us and that we are, kind of taking part in. Ituba obviously took the whole process under review. So what sat last year in November was the urgent part of the application, which didn't succeed, and it was not awarded to Ituba in terms of urgency, with costs, by the way. So now what remains is the review application that is still to be sat down. We will continue. We continue because, like I say, 82 days until the 1st of June. We won't be deterred. And at this point in time, we have to go through the motions, but we're comfortable and we're confident on our case that it's business and it's all systems go for us on the 1st of June. So that's the big one, I guess, that's sitting in front of us.
All right. 011-883-0702. That's the number to dial. You can send your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. We've been in conversation this hour with Fundi Sithebe, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Sizekaya Holdings, the new operator of the National Lottery. What are your questions? What are your inputs? All of that coming up after the headlines. Sviso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Scores of school children have been injured in a crash in Boksburg this morning. Emergency services say a collision happened between a bakkie and a minibus taxi transporting pupils on the R554 in Rondebolt. Authorities say all injured occupants were stabilized at the scene before being transported to various hospitals. The lawyers for controversial Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim are requesting the Madlanga Commission to stand down today because they intend on filing a postponement application. Karim's legal team received additional documents by the Commission's evidence leaders this morning. The documents refer to bank statements which show previously undisclosed payments flowing from one of Karim's companies to Medicare 24. And the Gauteng provincial government plans to spend 179.2 billion rand in the 2026-27 financial year, with total spending expected to exceed R500 billion over the next 3 years. Presenting the province's budget finance, MEC Lebogang Maile says this year's budget will focus on addressing on frontline services like health, education and policing. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Traveling in the city of Tshwane, we still have got queuing traffic. In fact, heavy delays on the N14 North. This is between the Brakfontein interchange and Euphus Road. Roadworks are taking place right near Euphus Road turn off. And then right after the Brakfontein turn off, an accident reported there. So if you're heading towards the CBD, the Pretoria CBD, please try to use the N1 North instead, or even use the R101. While traveling in Joburg, we've got queuing traffic along the R24 West all the way towards the N12 merge. An accident reported there. The queue starts roundabout Barbara Road, so please be on the lookout and try to avoid. You still have got the N12 West as well as the R21 South if you want to navigate your way around this backlog. And traveling on the N3 South, queuing traffic between Linksfield Road and the Buccleuch interchange. There's also queuing traffic reported on the M1 North. This is just as you make your way towards the Crown turn off. Roadworks are causing these delays. Please approach with care and do anticipate about a 10-minute hold up there. More updates coming up at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Midday Report.
Weekdays
12 to 1.
I'll be waiting for a court decision in this matter. And if the courts decide that she should recuse herself, is this something that she would take on appeal potentially?
Well, once the court makes a decision that the judge should recuse themselves, that the judge has an obligation to do so. An appeal would actually not look good for her and also for the commission itself. And so once the court makes that decision, I think it would be the end of the matter.
Becky Zeli Benjamin from Judges Matters.
The Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
For many women, a CV often becomes a list of qualifications, titles, and experience, while the strengths that shape real success remain overlooked. Empathy, resilience, and the ability to lift others. Momentum's She Owns Her Success campaign celebrates these invisible success quotes, the qualities that may not appear on a traditional CV, but leave a lasting mark. Using Momentum's AI-powered CV Builder, women can now bring those strengths to life. Visit sheownshersuccess.co.za and build a CV that reflects the fullness of who you are.
Looking to upgrade your office furniture this year? Desk & Chair, the direct office furniture manufacturer, has a deal you don't want to miss. Get 5% cash back towards your existing office furniture with all purchases over 350,000 Rand. Contact Desk & Chair now for more info. Visit our newly renovated showroom in Midrand or shop online at deskandchair.co.za. Desk & Chair. Think, feel, work better. T's and C's apply.
I heard her interviews run smoother because she somehow finds the right people the first time around.
Yeah, it's like she already knows who fits where before they even sit down.
She must have gone for special training, like some Sixth Sense HR certificate.
No, guys, it's SA Youth, the largest youth online recruitment platform. It's fast to post, effortless to use, and effective every time.
Recruit on the portal to potential, sayouth.co.za. Powering South Africa's youth workforce.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons
3 to 6.
South Africa has steadily built up its trade relations, very broadly put, in the Middle East and in the Gulf. And I would assume there must be exporters who either can't get their goods there, or if they are going to get their goods there, it would be with significant compromise to their margins. What sectors of the South African economy might be affected if this conflict goes on longer?
It's countries that aren't in the Middle East so much. A fuel supply disruption affects global production. That's an indirect impact via the negative impact on the global economy.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
702 Afternoon Drive with John Perlman is proudly brought to you by Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
It's 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. From the 1st of June, it's not going to be Ituba that operates the National Lottery. It's going to be Sizekaya. And we're speaking to the Chief Operating Officer, Fundisi Tebe, this morning. What questions do you have? What inputs do you have? What changes would you like to see? I'm taking your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. So let's start here.
Morning, Madikmecha. Can you ask how are they going to deal with this thing that the machines are offline? Because often when you go there, the machines are offline. So I'm asking the question, how are they going to deal with that?
Hi, I'd like to know, I'm working outside the country in Malawi. On my Capitec banking app, I could play a lottery, but not outside of South Africa. So if I try, it just says, sorry, I can't remember what it says, but anyway, I can't play outside of South Africa. And yet my one colleague from South Africa who's got an ABSA account, an ABSA banking app, he can play lottery. So is that something to do with the banks? Or, yeah, just wondering. Dave.
Hi, Clement. I say I'm anonymous. Ask the lady if they're going to bring the scratch tickets because people used to win, breakfast money with the scratch tickets, Yeah, because this rolling balls, it's not working for a lot of people. So the scratch cards, like overseas, I think they can do better for some people, who hasn't got money. Maybe they can win 200 rands, 500, from the scratch cards. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Let's start with this group of questions, Fundi.
Okay, let me start with the last one
Yeah.
because that's an exciting one. Of course, scratch cards are coming back.
Oh, nice.
Part of the reason we realized that in terms of, different player requirements, different personas of players, that the scratch card was probably something that was missing because it's instantaneous and it's low value, but with potentially high wins. And a lot more regular than a jackpot. So those are definitely coming back, and those will be offered both online and within our retail environment as well. So yes, definitely coming back. Then let me go to the gentleman outside of the country. So let me answer it from this perspective. The South African lottery is for people within South Africa, right? So obviously there have to be checks and balances to ensure that we don't have people. They may be South African, they may not be South African, who are not inside the borders of South Africa. So there have to be those checks and balances to be able to, to play. So I can sit here firmly and say that you shouldn't be able to be playing the lottery outside of the South African borders because now you're touching on different legislation, other countries. So it shouldn't be allowed. But it may also just come down to a bank-to-bank risk model. So, if ABSA, I'm not sure if ABSA versus Capitec, you'd have to check with his bank. And then finally, offline machines that Marimecha raises. Very, very valid point because I think, one, because of the technology, but also just the cell phone infrastructure and the network infrastructure, there has been those problems. But what we've done as part of our offering with, like I said, Genlot SA, and some of the partners that we've got is we've got what we call next generation multi-network SIM technology. So within these machines, we put in the routers, we put in SIM cards that are able to just pick up the strongest network at the time. So it's not necessarily confined to a particular network provider. And if that network provider isn't strong, then it's not working. So we've learned a lot from previous kind of learnings, and we've instituted into that. So there definitely will be that multi-dimensional SIM, but also I think that the communications technology that we're putting in from the get-go is a lot more modern, is a lot more agile, and speaks to the South African context of different infrastructure, different availabilities. Like I said earlier on, we want our rural customers to be able to play, to be able to access. Those handheld devices must be able to work. And of course, that means that we have to then bolster that with a very, very reliable comms infrastructure.
Okay, here's some more WhatsApp voice notes.
Hi, Clement. Can you ask the lady about manual draw? Can they bring back manual draw, please? This thing of electronic draw, we don't trust it. Can they bring manual so that it's fair?
Morning, Clement. Ask your guest if they cannot put the smaller amounts, the one in the Powerball, 2 in the Powerball, or 3 numbers into a bit of a bigger payout scale. At least if somebody plays a 15 or a 20 rand ticket, they get their money back instead of playing a 35 rand ticket and getting back 10 rand. It'll entice people to play a lot more. Just my point of view.
Hi, Clement and the team. Your guest said they will add more retail outlets. Don't you think that a penetration strategy can end up promoting irresponsible gambling? David.
Thank you so much, Fundi.
Okay. So it's interesting. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. The guest asked about a manual draw, and we are saying that it's precisely that kind of perspective that people felt that it wasn't fair, that it was a draw somewhere in the background that's happening. So hence I emphasize that the live lottery draws are coming back. But I think what we need to also note is there's no lottery international best practice that runs manually. Right, so we are instituting best practice, but I also need to emphasize to him that there are checks and balances. So earlier on we spoke about the central gaming system. That's where you go and you choose your numbers. Over and above that, the system that we use to draw the numbers, it's called an RNG system, random number generating system. That's an independent system altogether that will then pull the winning numbers, let's call it. And then on top of that, you've got what's called an IVS, independent verification system, that then looks at these numbers did exist on this central gaming system, and this is what was chosen then through the random number generation, and therefore we can then verify that it's true and it's accurate. So there are checks and balances, and we need to take the players on us on this journey. But I can definitely say to the player, there will be no manual draws. There are no manual draws that are being done, and precisely because we want to safeguard the integrity of the lottery product. Because once you start having manual, it's human interaction. It's human. We're just human beings, and there could be mistakes or whatever the case may be. So we're really wanting to move against that. Hence the three systems that are critically important.
Yeah.
I think there was the question, if I understood it correctly, Clement, is around the bigger pay, fixed payouts. So part of what we have introduced, and we will obviously start introducing the awareness probably within a month, so that players are aware. So I can guarantee that there is not only a cascading jackpot that we've got, so that when I said frequent jackpots, so if it hasn't been won by a certain time, then we cascade it. And, if you had played your 6 numbers and the 6 numbers weren't won, we then force it down 5 numbers, etc. So some of those things are in play. But over and above that, we've also played around with, how do we ensure that even with your 3 numbers that, you can still potentially win? And that's part of some of the gaming innovation that we've got. So I can confirm that that's definitely coming. And then in time, we'll then take time to kind of take the players along that journey.
Yeah. And then someone else spoke about adding more retail outlets.
That's already done.
Yeah.
So definitely the bigger retailer footprint, the banks that we've spoken about, etc. But I think what he mentioned was this penetration strategy.
Yes.
How do we avoid irresponsible gaming?
Yeah.
Right. And we alluded to it earlier on. So there are also limits within the system. So I can't go and decide that I want to buy tickets for 200,000 for the lottery. There's a system, checks and balances that will immediately stop you. So the number of times and the amount is capped that a player can obviously play. And we're saying that, over and above the responsible gaming that we adhere to, the codes of good practice that we have to adhere to, we think that we've got at least a really strong backbone to start to curb some of that irresponsible gaming.
Pat, you calling us from Pretoria. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Hi, Pat. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
What safety measures are they going to put into place to ensure that big amount winners like jackpot winners, if they don't claim, right now what's happening is if jackpot winner doesn't claim, he's not aware that he's won, notaries place an advert to inform the winner to claim. That's not safe. I mean, we live in a country where there's a lot of kidnappings and extortions. So what are they going to do to make sure that it's automatic? If I play, I win a jackpot, the message that I've won must come directly to me, and me alone would know that I've won because of I've been elected by a particular application. So this is meant to safeguard the jackpot winners. Right now, there's this advert that they place, and secrets are easy to pass, especially within lottery itself. It hasn't done itself a great deal of good because of the corruption that is happening within the system of lotteries board.
Yeah, got it. Pet in Pretoria, thank you for that question. Cindy?
So there definitely is a method if we break it down. So if Pat, for example, plays online with his bank will get in touch with him. All right, they'll call him to say, Mr. Pat, you are a winner. Please make your way to a center. Where in that center you're dealt with anonymity, that word, yes. Anonymous.
Yes.
And you don't have to disclose at all. You, as the person, have the power and the right to say, I want to disclose or I don't want to disclose. And we cannot force you otherwise. So that's the first. Second thing, obviously online as well. If you, as a player, have access to your online app, and it's only you that has access to it, there'll be a notification and a similar process kicks in that, you've won an X amount, and we will then be in touch with you about how you then get your winnings. But never at any time do we announce that so-and-so has won unless you decide that you want to announce. It's not for us to announce. And then lastly, I think the place where a lot of this kind of sits is, if you've gone into a retail and you've bought a physical ticket, right? We obviously have to announce the winning numbers because people must know if they've won or they haven't won. But we never at any stage reveal that, there's a winner, there's two winners. We never at any stage say that this, we just say there is a winner. And it's incumbent on you to check your ticket to say, okay, I potentially could be that winner. Then you come into our offices, and within our own offices, Clement, we deal with winners in a very anonymous culture. So you come in, we already put you into, a winner's lounge where it is secure, it is in confidence, and we then go through the process with you because obviously we've got a vet that's a winning ticket, it's not fraudulent, and there have to be some supporting services around that, around how you handle your money, financial counseling. So that whole process is also part of what we've put together. But I can assure the listener that, there's never been a time or we don't intend on putting people's names out there. We can't do that. It's simply not, it's not legal.
Okay. I've got some WhatsApps that have come through here as well. Anonymous says, hi Clement, has just joined this conversation. Can you please ask Fundi, why are we getting charged a fee when we play through these banking apps? While it's free, for instance, on the Ituba app. So that's a question about the bank fees. And then another person says, Clement, are the lottery numbers going to be increased? I think it's something we touched on earlier on. And then another person says, Clement, I know the lottery is in good hands because Fundi is there. She's a maverick. A Marvel learned of her when she made horse racing cool again in Johannesburg. Happy for the new lottery team. Get in there. That's a message there from Len. There's also a question we've been getting around, and I know you've dealt with this as an organization, the allegations that came linking Sizekaya to the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile. Are you worried about how that somehow puts the credibility of the organization at risk? How have you dealt with it?
Once again, I think within the context of everything that's happening in South Africa, we can't be numb to the noise, right? But I can confidently say that at the beginning I said this took an incredible amount of time, energy, resource, thinking. And if we had any doubt about shareholding and about any potential risks around that shareholding, I don't think that we would have gotten to this point. So I can definitely confirm that, according to the National Lotteries Act of 1997, which is very clear about defining politically exposed, political involvement, that we've crossed that, we've crossed that bridge and we've passed that test, which is very important. So I can assure South Africans at large that we are in no way politically tainted, politically favored, and we truly believe that this was at the back of a strong, very, very strong and excellent value proposition that we put forward. I've spoken about the team, I've spoken about the innovations, I've spoken to, a lot of what we put on paper, and that's what we fundamentally believe. So we don't for one second believe that there was any favor from political favor. But more than that, we stuck to the National Lotteries Act. We adhered to it, and we've passed that test, clear and square.
There was a question about banking fees. Do you have control over that?
We don't. We don't, unfortunately. And whilst I don't necessarily want to speak for banks, I'm assuming that obviously banks need to have their own processes and systems, right, to be able to integrate, to be able to offer this. So I'm assuming that will be part of the cost. Like I said earlier on, remember the retailers also charge us a commission for selling the ticket. So whilst you may not see it when you buy your ticket at the retailer, but we are obviously adhere and we have to pay for that cost. So there definitely has to be a cost that has to be incurred, and I'm sure that's what the banks are doing.
Okay, Ryan, you are in Randburg. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Clement and your guest. Apologies, I didn't get the name. I just joined
Fundi.
the conversation
Yeah,
a few
go
minutes
ahead.
ago. Hi, Fundi. Yes, thanks. So I was just wondering how you looking to advise your winners going forward once you do become the national operator. I'm a financial advisor, and I've always been extremely concerned about, people who win hundreds of millions or tens of millions of rands who've never had proper financial advice. I know that you're not really able to force them to do that, but from what I understand, the current system, there are a list of some sort of financial advisors that your winners are referred to, and I'm just wondering what your guys' system is going to look like.
Thank you, Ryan in Randburg. Fundi?
Thanks very much. And Ryan is right. We always speak about the bad stories of, somebody wins the lottery and then they end up on a blew it. And really we want to start to debunk some of those, And Ryan is absolutely spot on. We cannot force somebody who's won to be bound to financial advice and financial counseling. But we, as part of our license condition, we have to offer it. So I mentioned earlier on that if you happen to be a winner and you come in through to our office, as part of that process of confirming that you are the winner, a legit ticket, there is automatic financial advice and financial counseling that is given to you. We have to by law. And so we are comfortable that baseline is there, that offering is there. But at the end of the day, we're human beings, we're adults, and each will decide how they want to spend their money. But it's always unfortunate that, we find ourselves in those narratives of our bluet. And part of what we want to do is part of the education and the journey is to start to, impact some of those stories in some way or other.
Yeah. Some WhatsApps, 072-702 and 702.
Hi, good morning, Clement. Please ask your guest, what guarantee do we have that we won't have a situation where the lottery is rigged or set to be rigged in inverted commas, as we have seen with our previous or the current incumbent? What guarantees do we have that will not happen again with them? Thanks.
Hi, Clement. Will they still be investing in the arts similar to like the UK lottery, like films, plays, and that kind of thing?
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to your 702 listeners. Can you just please ask your guest in the studio if they could put a QR code on their ticket that they issue to us, so that we can just use our phones to just immediately scan the ticket and see the results for ourselves. This thing of going to the shops or logging on to the internet to check results is quite tedious sometimes. If they just include a QR code on the tickets, we scan, we win, then we collect our 10 million. This is Eugene from Soshanguve.
Eugene, 10 million, hey? Okay, Fundi, of course you've touched on some of these issues and questions being asked, but for the benefit of our listeners who may have just only joined the conversation, please, if you can re-emphasize them.
Absolutely, Eugene. We don't want to stand in the way of you and your 10 million rands winnings. So there definitely will be an opportunity for you to scan your QR code. Once again, it brings back that experience back into your hands, back into your control, and you're able to check it as and when you'd like to check on that. So that function is definitely going to be enabled, a first in South Africa, and I think it's actually a first even around the world. So we're very proud of that innovation. Then there was a question around the NLDTF. Will there still be funding given to sports, films, etc.? Like I said, the NLDTF is a separate structure, and they go through a process of applications, etc., where they vet, and they are the final determinants of where those funds are distributed to. What I can tell with confidence, like I said before, that the 20 to 25% good cause allocation from Sizakaya is there, and part of what we think was a compelling value proposition was that increase from what it currently is and what it's going to be, which means that there should be more money going around for better causes, etc. So at the end of the day, really, South Africa's lottery ensures that we keep on winning as South Africans, one way or the other. And then there was a question around, is it rigged? And like I said earlier on, there are three systems that are independent of each other that make sure that the checks and balances. So it's the central gaming system, random number generation, and your IVS, your independent verification system. So I sit here and I say, as Sizakaya, that the system is not rigged. The system is purely designed to be so independent that it's also audited by the NLC. We have to keep our results for a certain amount of time that can be, verified, re-verified, etc. So there's very, very little room, if any, for it to be rigged. And part of what we want to do with the lottery show is to bring that transparency back, where you see the numbers for yourselves and you see that, okay, nobody is messing, nobody's sitting in a corner. And part of that is really bringing the confidence back in the lottery and the transparency. So those are the methods that we've put in place.
Yeah, in fact, speaking of transparency and confidence, Xolela says on the WhatsApp text, Clement, ask your guest if they are in any way considering live games to restore the credibility and transparency of the National Lottery. Well, Xolela, Fundi touched on that earlier. That is coming back, the live lotto draws. And then Missu is joking on Twitter, says, Clement, ask her not to give financial counseling to the winners so we can continue to enjoy I blew it. No, Missu, we want them to grow it. How about I grew it? And then Matlodi says, Clement, this is not Matlodi, Lindy says, Clement, please ask them, how are they going to assure the public that the draws are not rigged? You've already answered that. And then the other question is, how are the players are going to be updated on the good causes that the lottery is supposed to fund? Is that the plan? To tell more of the stories of where this money ends up?
I think it's important. I think it's a very important part because, like we say, it restores the confidence, again, to the South Africans, but also to the NLDTF. And part of what we are aiming to do as Sizakaya, like I said, we're the operator. The funds are distributed by the NLDTF. But how do we work together to ensure that the good stories, like you say, I love it, I grew it. We must emphasize on those stories. We must emphasize that, like I said earlier on, we really take it for granted that the lottery is South Africa's largest philanthropic, provider. There is no other vehicle, there is no other engine that gives back to South Africa as much as the South African lottery. So we must take the player, the South Africans, on this journey of understanding, what the funds are meant to do, what they're doing. So I think that the responsibility is equally on us as an operator. And some of the work that we'll start to do and to start to showcase perhaps will be around those good stories.
Fundi Sitebe, thank you so much for making time for us. All the best to you and the team at Sizakaya. Hopefully we'll bring you in as soon as you guys have started.
Thank you. I hope I'm still awake once we've started, because it might just come like a brick wall. But thank you so much for having me. This is a great engagement.
It was insightful. Thank you.
Let's hear from Al, owner of Johnson's Cable, why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance.
I thought it was going to be difficult to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Switching was so quick and easy. I'm happy with the premium that I'm paying now.
For electrical, tradesman services and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Mzansi, it's raining millions with Powerball and Powerball Plus at 124 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Tuesday. Don't delay. Make it rain lots of cash. This much by playing Powerball for 84 million rand and Powerball Plus for 40 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app or cell phone banking. Panda Pusha Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Imagine a holiday where the only thing on the to-do list is to enjoy yourself. With NCL, world-class dining, award-winning entertainment and a variety of onboard experiences come as standard. So enjoying yourself is easy breezy. We sail to over 400 destinations worldwide, including Europe, the Caribbean and beyond. Your dream cruise is calling. Visit ncl.com for the best deals or contact your travel agent today. Conditions apply. Norwegian Cruise Line. It's different out here.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The lawyers for controversial Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim are requesting the Madlanga Commission to stand down today because they intend on filing a postponement application. Karim's legal team received additional documents by the Commission's evidence leaders this morning. The documents refer to bank statements which show previously undisclosed payments flowing from one of Karim's companies to Medicare 24. Medicare 24 is owned by alleged tender fraudster Vusmuzi Ketmatala, and it was awarded an irregular 360 million rand tender by SAPS in June 2024. Karim's lawyer Rafiq Bana says he needs more time to consult with his clients before he's questioned on this new information.
The documents look like this: intense line items of hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions. Now, it might be that the Commission says it's not intending to refer to all of those transactions, but we have simply not had an adequate or fair opportunity to deal with this.
Evidence leader Matthew Chaskelson is opposing the postponement, saying that the fault lies with Karim, who didn't disclose these payments from the onset.
There is no innocent explanation for just overlooking the fact that more than 2 million rands beyond what you have disclosed also happened to be paid. The reason that these documents were made available to his legal team today and not earlier was, first of all, he filed his statement late. Second of all, in his statement, he didn't disclose these payments.
Scores of school children have been injured in a crash in Boksburg this morning. Emergency services say a bakkie and a minibus collided on the R554 in Rondebolt this morning. Authorities say all injured occupants were stabilized at the scene before being transported to various hospitals. The City of Ekurhuleni Sticky McDonald has urged motorists to be cautious on the road.
The impact resulted in multiple casualties, with injuries ranging from critical to minor. Firefighters and paramedics were on scene within minutes to secure the area and begin triage. Remarkably, despite the severity of the collision, no fatalities were reported at the scene.
The Gauteng provincial government plans to spend more than 179.2 billion rand in the 2026-27 financial year. Presenting the province's budget this morning, Finance Minister MEC Hangwani Maumela says the budget will focus on addressing critical services such as health, education and policing. Maumela also says the current economic climate leaves limited fiscal space for planning and expenditure. Dimakatso Lishoro has more.
The provincial government says it will spend 549.3 billion rand, an increase of 5.2% over the medium term. The Departments of Education and Health will get the lion's share of the budget. Education will receive 70.9 billion rand over the 2026-27 financial year and 221.8 billion rand over the medium term. Health will receive 70.3 billion rand this year and 218.6 billion over the medium term. Social development will receive 17.2 billion rand over the medium term. Together, these three departments account for 83% of the budget over the medium term. Meanwhile, 4.9 billion rand has been set aside for economic development over a 3-year period and 1.8 billion rand in the 2026-2027 financial year. Maumela says this will help the province reach its targeted economic growth of 2.1% this year. Dimakatso Leshoro, Eyewitness News at the Gauteng Provincial Legislature.
And a Bulgarian man wanted by Interpol is expected back in the Wynberg Magistrates Court today, where a ruling will be made on whether his arrest in Cape Town was lawful. Stainlov Stamanov was arrested nearly 2 weeks ago after an Interpol red notice was issued. He was convicted by a Romanian court in 2019 and sentenced to 16 years in prison for his role in a drug trafficking syndicate. However, his lawyer, William Booth, is challenging the legality of the arrest, arguing that Romanian authorities did not formally submit an extradition request needed to secure an arrest warrant. Gold is trading at $5,178.54 an ounce. The rand is at 16.24 to the dollar, 21.89 to the pound, 18.94 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $93.59 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the N12 east. This is right as you approach the R24 merge, an accident reported there. Delays coming out of the Gilulis interchange. There's also queuing traffic reported on the Mark 1 North between Boysons Road and the Crown interchange. That's due to roadworks.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The lawyers for controversial Northwest businessman Suleiman Karim are requesting the Madlanga Commission to stand down today because they intend on filing a postponement application.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Minutes after 11 o'clock, Dumelang, Sanbonani. Welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. It's time for
702.
World of Work.
Our World of Work feature. And today we are discussing mobbing at work. You know, when there's a group that you work with that somehow quietly and deliberately pushes you out, they isolate you until you can't take it anymore and you decide to leave the company. So it's group-based workplace harassment. You can think of it as that. But this is where you've got several people, and often these are your peers. Sometimes that includes even leaders of an organization, and they're turning on one person and slowly squeeze them out. And it tends to be planned, and then it spreads, and it's often designed to look like, this is just normal workplace dynamics from the outside. And it's different to bullying, because that is often when one person is targeting another, frequently in a more direct way and sometimes tied to power. And it could be a manager who's abusing their authority, for instance. Have you been a victim of mobbing at work? Have you found yourself being isolated by your team, quietly being pushed out? They squeeze you out. And sometimes it's just like, those meetings that you're suddenly being left out of. They're not inviting you to that social gathering that happens every single Friday as a team to reflect on the week that was. It's things like that. Have you been a victim of mobbing at work, and how have you dealt with it? 011-883-0702 is the number to dial. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Adrian Gordon is the Dean of Academic Support at Rosebank College, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Adrian, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone listening.
Let's start by differentiating between bullying and mobbing. What's the difference between the two in your understanding?
Yeah, I think the bullying, as you said before, it's sometimes more direct, and very often it's also related to power. So it's usually the manager bullying the subordinates into doing something. Very rarely does it happen the other way around. Whereas this mobbing is a little bit more intentional, and it's usually group-based. So there's a group of people that have almost willfully decided to target somebody, and then quite manipulatively create scenarios that excludes them, and in fact makes the victim seem as if are they delusional, or are they making this thing up? So it also creates uncertainty within the individual as to why this is happening to them.
Do we even understand, Adrian, what the psychology is behind this? Like, why, in your experience, do such groups exist, and why do employees then end up joining in on such groups that isolate other team members?
Yeah, and I think it's all to do with the culture and how embedded the culture is within the company. If the culture is almost just paying lip service to some jargon that typically gets thrown around in an organization, then that actually creates an environment where mobbing can go undetected and go under the radar. Whereas if a company really does hold true to its values and everybody is buying into it, then these instances become less. I think it's also about where you are in the phase. So if you are a new group of employees, or there's a new team that's formed, then you almost want to establish yourself in the pecking order. And if you have a dominant person that decides to follow this route and to isolate people, then it's almost like peer pressure. You almost have to join the group or become one of the victims.
So could it also be, Adrian, that sometimes it's the managers that the company hires who are not necessarily aligned with the values of the company, and that's why, because of the power that they possess, they're able to get the rest of the team to be against Clement, for instance?
Yeah, your managers must be the first ones to buy into the culture of the organization, and if they don't, they almost it gives everybody else permission to follow suit and to lead, or to do the things that they see their manager doing as well. I think it's very short-sighted, though. A manager who adopts that approach to get their way, I think, is themselves. I don't think they hold their own ability in high regard, because it's usually a fearful reaction or a fearful technique that is used.
I see. So how do you recognize like this kind of pattern? For someone who's listening and is wondering, I wonder if I am currently experiencing mobbing at work. Maybe they've picked up some signs, but it's not conclusive. What are the signs to look out for? How do we recognize that this is mobbing at work?
The thing that I've picked up when in experiencing this is just how cleverly it is implemented, because the signs are usually quite subtle and can usually be dismissed if you ask the person directly. So, for example, you might start getting excluded from a meeting, and when you address it, people will go, "Oh, sorry, we just forgot you this time. Don't worry about it." And they almost dismiss the concern. So in this case, it's not necessarily about identifying individual things that happen to you. It's about identifying the pattern. What is the general trend of what's happening? How many times have I been excluded? And it'll be a combination of different exclusionary things that happen to you, which then give you an idea of, oh, okay, I think something is happening here in a group dynamic way.
I've got messages coming through here on the WhatsApp line 0727021702. Please share your experiences with us. I'll get to those messages in a moment. You're also welcome to call us on 011-883-0702. Adrian, can we sometimes experience like the COVID nature of mobbing, and why does it often mess up with your head? Because maybe you experience it, but it's not so obvious, and sometimes you sit and wonder, maybe I am over exaggerating certain scenarios, especially because I'm sure you're constantly being gaslit if you were brave enough to even raise it with a manager or a fellow team member. But are there instances where this can be covert, where it starts messing up with your head?
I agreed, and I think this is exactly the evolution that we're seeing of a couple of instances. I think social media and the prevalence of WhatsApp groups and the anonymity that you can hide in those kinds of groups, as well as what you've just referred to as gaslighting. This is kind of the evolution, because it means that you start questioning whether or not it is real. And I think that's a fundamental weapon for anybody who's using this tactic, is to keep the person feeling unsettled and whether it's really real or not. And very often, that's why I said, this is quite an insidious tactic, because it is well planned and very cleverly implemented for that balance to be struck, where somebody's always questioning whether this is a real thing or not. So that takes quite a bit of thought.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do if you think this is happening to you? What are the first steps to take?
Yeah, it is a tricky one, because in the team dynamic, you have to work with these individuals day in and day out. So I think your first port of call is to address it head on, and openly talk about the instances that you feel are becoming a pattern, at least with your line manager. Even though they may be part of it, I think it is important, like in any bullying scenario, to stand up and to voice exactly what it is that is happening to you, so that you make it almost a reality and you stop questioning whether it's happening or not. And you almost make that conscious decision to address it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously that can be dismissed quite easily, but I think then the next step is obviously the formal route, where, all the organizations have an HR policy, they have an anti-bullying policy, and this falls under that policy. So it's then about finding the people who are not part of this and using them to find a way forward in almost like a legal or a policy-driven way.
And is there legal recourse as well to take?
Absolutely, especially if the discrimination falls under things like racial discrimination or gender discrimination. The law protects you in that regard. So even if you've been dismissed on the notion of this kind of ganging together, the legal recourse is that you can take it to the labor court, for example, and challenge the outcome based on the evidence that you can present. And, you can ask for damages, you can ask for compensation, or you could even ask for reinstatement.
Okay, let's go to some WhatsApps now. What's this? This is Charles, who says, "Hi, Clement. I hope you're well today. Yeah, there are people like that at my previous company. They target you for nothing just because they are feeling threatened by the way you're so good at your work, and they make you resign, or they will plant evidence against you so that you can get fired." So that is Charles sharing his experience with us based on the company that he's worked for previously. Another one says, "Hi, Clement. This thing happens a lot, all the time with me. Then I realized I'm not such a nice person after all. So what's my reaction? Personally, I tell them to kick rocks and then make them feel intellectually inferior for control, that is. And I always win. What I do is pick the ringleader, mop the floor with them, and re-establish control." Whoa, Adrian. I mean, this person really goes into detail about how they dismantle that entire system. But is that the way to deal with it? Like, get the ringleader, mop the floor with them, so you re-establish some level of control?
I wouldn't go to that extreme in terms of the terminology used, but I agree with tackling the thing head on. Usually there is a ringleader. There is a person that you can almost see where this happens the most, And I also agree that addressing it head on is one of the options to take. I indicated before, I think the adage is always about if you can identify the bully and stand up to them, then usually they leave you alone. I would imagine that to a large extent, this is the case here as well. If you directly address this, not necessarily mop the floor with them, but if you are strong enough and determined enough and actually very aware emotionally of what is happening, and you actually address it head on, especially with the person that's leading this, then a lot of the time it at least opens a dialogue. And very often these things happen because of a misunderstanding or an assumption that has been made. And at least the dialogue allows you to address that assumption and establish a new relationship.
Okay.
Clement and your guest, my principle is simple. Why stay where you are not needed? People who stays in this kind of organizations are people who are kind of desperate, who doesn't have alternatives, especially if you are at the older age, inverted commas. But I left the transport agency in South Africa because of the same behavior. I was mobbed. I left voluntarily and left them there to enjoy whatever that they're doing. Anonymous Centurion.
So, and here's the thing, Adrian. I mean, there are people who experience this, and the easy, quick solution here is just leave the organization. But then that doesn't really change the organization, because then there are people who are going to come and join that team or join the company, and they're likely to face a similar scenario as well. And I'm not suggesting here that employees must take it upon themselves as their responsibility to fix the organization and those who don't align with the culture. But also because also you can't really blame them, right? You can't blame the people who leave, because what else is available? Maybe for them, they don't see any other recourse. Maybe they don't see that if they raise it with a manager, something will come of it. But I'm just concerned about if you leave and you've not even raised it, even in your exit interview, if you work for a company that does that, it still opens the door to someone else becoming victim to that kind of attitude.
No, I agree. And I think any organization that is interested in a sustainable growth and a history and a legacy of excellence will take these allegations seriously. Because in the long run, if you have this kind of culture, you will effectively hit the bottom line at some point. Your profits will drop because the culture that has been created doesn't allow for sustainable customer relationships or productive partnerships. So you will get instances where if this is reported, it is usually investigated quite thoroughly and quite rigorously, and people will listen to you, even if it isn't your direct line manager. I think then in instances where it is ignored, then you do face that dilemma of how much energy do I put into this myself? How much abuse do I take before I actually have to preserve my own sanity and move on? And that's a choice that people will have to make. And I'm sure Anonymous we had got to that point where they had reached this almost emotional point of departure. But I agree with you. I think at the very least, if not anonymously, so many organizations have ethics hotlines where you can anonymously lay a complaint or share what has been witnessed. You must also talk about it at your exit interview and be very specific and deliberate about it.
Okay, we'll come back to some of the WhatsApp messages here. There's a text here that says, Clement, can your guest also comment on the use of a WhatsApp group where it is known that not everyone is in that WhatsApp group instead of the work communication channels like Teams to discuss things, both serious and casual? Could this be a sign of mobbing? That's a question from Tsidi. My understanding here is knowing that there's a WhatsApp group that exists, but not everybody is in it. It's just a select few people in the company or in that team that are part of that WhatsApp. And then there are other channels where like work communication kind of channels. Is that a sign of mobbing, is what she's asking?
I think it can be, and it needs to be looked at in conjunction with all of the other activities that are happening, everything else that you're almost getting excluded from. I am increasingly wary of WhatsApp groups. I think, you have your formal business WhatsApp channels, and it's a curated, and you can track and trace the messages that are going through because it's a business account. Those ones I'm less concerned about, but it is about the almost informal communication layer that does happen. We've got a WhatsApp group in our space, and the thing that we essentially do is we have more than one administrator and we have more than one curator of this, so that if somebody wants to come in, it isn't managed or controlled by one person who has all the power to exclude or include certain people. So there has to be a democratic management of that space. But also an acknowledgement that the space cannot be used for business purposes at all. And as much as possible, this is a WhatsApp group that is open to all for transparency reasons. If you've been excluded from it and you have asked to be included in it and you still are not being allowed in, then certainly that can be an indicator of, if not mobbing, at least bullying.
Morning 702. I'm just listening to the radio regarding the mobbing and bullying at work. I'm also the victim. I worked 37 years in the company. I did the good senior credit controller. However, I picked up the incorrect things that they were doing within the finance department. What I realized later, it was all senior management involved in this matter. I did go to CCMA to fight the case, but I failed because I realized that even the union, it was involved in this matter. So there's no winning situation. Once the company has that bullying or mobbing system, if we become a victim, the end of it all, you are going to be out of that job. So it is how the operation works, regardless of how you work, how you've implemented the betterness of the company. It doesn't work because they want to see you being out because you're becoming a problem to them.
I Clement. I was retrenched because of that. I saw that there was a movement, but I couldn't see what was happening. Eventually, I was retrenched, but I could sense that something was going on. So it was their plan all along to retrench me. So they sidelined me on meetings. Anonymous in the van.
Good morning, Clement and 702 listeners. It's a very sensitive topic about being bullied at work by your manager, and your manager mobilizing the team that you're supposed to be working with not to listen to you and make your work so difficult. And even if, as your guests say, you approach, you confront, it does not work. It didn't work. It's torture. They discredit your work like you don't know what you're doing. They make you feel like you are nothing. It's very bad. The experience that I experienced since 2018, 2019. Yo, Clement, it's Max here from Honeydew.
Sure. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been. Adrian, before we wrap up, what do you think organizations need to do before mobbing spreads? What can they do to ensure that this is not what their employees experience?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. As always, prevention is better than reaction. And to acknowledge that this type of activity does exist. So at the very least, there are structures and policies in place that protect the employee. I was listening to the comments. In our organization, for example, if we are concerned about this kind of thing, the ethics hotline doesn't go directly to our senior management. It goes to our holding company that holds our senior managers to account as well. So there's at least this level of separation in terms of the investigation and the concerns that have been raised. But in addition to that, it is also then about an active engagement in the culture and ensuring that everybody is aware. And it's not even just an awareness, it's about how you ingrain and behave within an organization that creates a zero tolerance environment for this kind of thing. It's easier said than done. You listen to the kind of trauma that people go through. It is easier said than done. But I think at the end of the day, if you can ground yourself, and if you know within your own heart and within your own reasonable and emotional intelligence that you have done nothing wrong, then that at least gives you the courage to follow the routes that can be followed to address this issue.
Yeah. Adrian, thank you so much for making time for us. Adrian Garden is the Dean of Academic Support at Rosebank College. That takes us to 11:31. Bali has the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. In Bali, we've got the date for the first voter registration weekend.
That's correct, Clement. A very good morning. The IEC has announced the dates for its first voter registration weekend ahead of the upcoming local government elections. That registration drive will take place on the 20th and the 21st of June. The announcement was made during a media briefing on the preparations for the upcoming elections. The next polls are expected to be held between November this year and January next year. The Madlanga Commission has rejected a bid by controversial businessman Suleiman Karim to postpone his testimony today. Karim's lawyers told the Commission this morning they received new documents from evidence leaders which they need to consult on before he is questioned about them. The documents relate to previously undisclosed bank statements showing an additional 2.1 million rand payment from one of Karim's companies to Vusimuzi Matlala's Medicare 24. And the Gauteng government plans to spend 179.2 billion rand in the 2026-2027 financial year. Presenting the province's budget this morning, Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says this budget will focus on addressing critical services like health, education and policing. Well, those are the headlines. This EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, traveling in Edenville, we still have that accident along the R24 East. It happened right near the N12 merge. It's causing heavy delays. Please be on the lookout there. While traveling on the N3 North, we've got roadworks that are taking place, causing heavy traffic volumes between Van Buren Road and the Kilulis interchange. If you're traveling on the Mike North towards Melrose, an accident will definitely slow you down coming out of Glenhove Road. About a 15-minute delay there. Please be on the lookout. And then continuing to make your way towards Midrand. We've got roadworks taking place on the M1 North right near Marlborough Drive, also slowing things down there. There's also queuing traffic along the M1 North. This is just as you approach the Crown interchange, and that's also due to roadworks along this route. In Chartwell, we've got some issues on the N14 South, just as you approach the R152. Please be on the lookout there and drive with care. More updates at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
With Outsurance, saving on your car insurance feels like being upgraded to first class or a flight. 35-year-old Becca saves an unbelievable 500 Rand on her 2022 Volkswagen T-Cross. Get a quote now. And if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. C's and T's and information online.
Why settle for being Mr. Humble when you can be called Grootman? Don't settle. Get the GWM P500 from only $8,499 per month. With a commanding presence, built to dominate any terrain. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM. Go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
LLB graduates can fast-track their legal career with the Law Society of South Africa's PVT School for Legal Practice. LPC accredited, this 4-month practice-ready course, which is taught by practicing lawyers, can reduce your PVT contract by 12 months for admission. Study by day, after hours, or via distance at campuses nationwide. The first 2026 intake runs from January to April. Applications close 31 October 2025. Apply now at lssalead.org.za. That's lssalead.org.za.
Some moments are personal. Some spaces are professional. All of them deserve care. At Frond and Filigree, we create handcrafted floral experiences for life's meaningful moments and the places where they happen. From birthdays and anniversaries to hotels, offices and events, our bespoke arrangements are designed with artistry and intention. Because when flowers are done right, they elevate every moment. Visit frondandfiligree.co.za.
Rolling from the rolling hills to the call of the wild. This week, KZN's natural beauty takes center stage. The KZN Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, together with Ezemvelo, KZN Wildlife, are gathering at Hilltop Camp, highlighting the province's conservation efforts and the unforgettable wildlife experiences waiting for visitors. Catch all the highlights, insights and live updates today on 702 Afternoons with Relebohile Mabocha and 702 Drive with John Perlman on 702.
702 Health and Wellness.
It's 23 now before 12 o'clock, and on our health and wellness feature today, we are talking about the importance of immunization for our kids and just ensuring that their vaccination is up to date. I mean, when the baby is small, the clinic will give them immunizations that teach their body like how to fight dangerous diseases. But this protection does not last forever, as we know. That's why over time, immunity can decrease, which is why children need booster doses at school age, not just when they are babies. And I'd like to know, when last did you check your child's immunization records? Are their vaccines up to date? And as a parent, how confident are you that your child has received all the recommended vaccinations for their age? Have you ever missed a vaccination appointment for your child, and maybe you've been struggling to catch up, and you've got a question maybe for my guest? You can call us or send us a WhatsApp voice note. Dr. Shakira Abrahams is a medical manager at Sanofi, South Africa, who's going to guide us through this chat. Thanks for making time, Dr. Abrahams. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. How are you?
I'm okay. Let's start with why immunization is so important for our kids.
So, vaccines and immunizations have been coming along for decades, right? And this has really helped us curb the spread of contagious diseases that, causes public health, detrimental diseases that just affects our infants, but also now we know as adults, right? So these are diseases such as diphtheria, tetanus, whooping cough that, it was common back in the day before vaccines, right? But as vaccines came in, it really helped with curbing those diseases, right? And it can be really severe in our infant populations. And like I said, even in our adults and our elderly as well. So it's really important to make sure that our babies get immunized, first of all, but then making sure that they get their booster vaccines as well, just to make sure we don't spread those diseases.
Because some parents think that as long as when they were infants they got those immunizations, then there's no need for them to continue receiving the vaccines and booster doses as they grow older. So you're saying that's quite just equally important. It's said that immunity can sort of decrease over time. Can you explain just in simple terms for our listeners how these vaccines work in the body and why these boosters are necessary later in childhood?
So, when you get vaccinated when you're a baby, right, so that really builds up your immunity. You get, for example, for vaccines against diphtheria, pertussis, and whooping cough. So you get 3 doses, right? So that primes your immune system, so you build up all the antibodies, right? So now you're protected in infancy, and as you grow older, after about 5 or 6 years, your body becomes, all the antibodies become a bit relaxed, right? So they haven't been working in a while because they haven't been getting these diseases, right? So when you administer or provide the boosters, it sort of just wakes those antibodies up again, right? So that you can now be ready when you're a bit older to fight those diseases. And it's common with vaccines. The immunity does wane just because, it's not a lot of vaccines are long-lasting, but we just need to sort of revive that antibodies in the system. That's really what's needed with boosters.
Are there common conditions or diseases that children are protected against through these routine immunization, especially, and I'm talking about our context here in South Africa?
So, like I mentioned, so our vaccine preventable diseases, right? So that's your diphtheria, that's your tetanus, your whooping cough, right? So, for example, whooping cough, that is a very contagious disease that spreads easily amongst kiddies, but they can also spread it to babies, and babies can't really receive that vaccine under 6 weeks, right? So they don't have immunity. So it's really making sure that those kids don't spread it to the elderly, to those infants who don't get vaccinated or can't get vaccinated. So these diseases are quite severe, right? So they can be severe. So with whooping cough, it causes long, painful coughing fits, right? That can last for weeks or even months, right? And in severe cases, you can actually stop breathing for a short period of time, which means that you need hospitalization. So, for example, tetanus as well. So this is caused by a bacteria that's commonly found in soil, it's commonly found in animal manure, and also damaged, rusted objects. And we know our kids are often exposed to those types of environments, right? And we really need to get them vaccinated against tetanus because, with any open cuts or wounds, when they come into contact with that bacteria in soil or wherever it's found, it can cause painful muscle tightening. It causes stiff jaws. It can also cause, a lack of breathing or trouble with breathing. And it also can be fatal in some cases as well.
Okay. Let's talk about scheduling then. When should immunizations start, and what are some of the important booster ages that parents should be aware of?
So if you look at the National Immunization Program, right, so that's the EPI. So those are the important vaccines that your baby must receive, right? So that starts from birth. And then, like I said, the primary vaccines such as your diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough, that starts from 6, 10 to 14 weeks. But I think just, make sure that you are aware of the schedule, the dosing times, when the kid has to go back to the hospital, to the clinic to get those vaccines. And then importantly, like I said, with the boosters, that's really given when the child goes to school because they need a booster because they get exposed to various diseases. And then also the school program, which is about at 12 years old, they also offer booster doses, right? So as soon as a child enters school and also while they're in school, those booster vaccines are available for them.
And if a child then misses one of their immunization doses, does that mean they've lost protection completely, or are there chances for them to catch up later?
So there's absolutely a chance to catch up later, and I think this is important, right? Because sometimes we miss a dose and we just leave all vaccinations as a whole, right? But it's important to go back to the clinic to understand how you can catch up. It's absolutely possible to catch up the missed doses and then just get back on track with the schedule. So it's just about going to the clinic, finding out more, speaking to the healthcare provider in that case.
Yeah. What else do parents need to do? Because I think a lot of parents often look at the Road to Health booklet and, they feel confused sometimes by all the dates and stems. What should they be looking for when checking their child's immunization record?
So I guess it's just really just looking at the dates that where vaccinations are needed, right, and the doses that have been administered already. But again, it's not their responsibility to make sure that you know what's on schedule and when to do what. Just go to the healthcare facility. They're well equipped. They're educated on it. But also, make sure that you educate yourself using reputable platforms, because we know in this day and age there's a lot of myths going around, right? So make sure you speak to your healthcare provider. Make sure you speak to experts. You use reputable platforms to help you understand when and what and how these vaccines need to be administered. There are a lot of information out there. It's just a matter of understanding the correct information and finding the correct information. So there's a lot of information out there, and this is also why we're chatting to you today, right? Just to put that communication out there.
Yeah. Okay. I want to give our listeners an opportunity to ask some questions, Dr. Abrahams. Some have some inputs as well. They want to join this conversation. You can do so on 011-883-0702 or send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702.
Hi, Clement. Please ask your guest if there is a vaccine for mumps, because I know in male children or men, it can affect the reproductive organs, the testes. So, yeah, and one can become sterile. Chivas in Boxburg, thanks.
Thank you, Chivas. Yeah, Dr. Abrahams?
Yes, so there exists a vaccine for that. So it's the MMR vaccine. So it's the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine that is available. So they can get that at their local clinics then.
Yeah, okay, at their local clinics. There was a question here. Okay, it's gone now. I'll find it. Oh, there we go. Gavin says, Clement, please can you ask how many vaccines have been through safety trials and where can these be seen?
I can confidently say that all vaccines that are recommended by the Department of Health have gone through thorough investigation. Some of these vaccines are quite old, right? So it's been decades and decades of research that has gone into these vaccines to ensure that it's safe, that it's efficacious. So there's a lot of work in the background that the public is not always aware of, right? But there's many restrictions and many regulatory processes that a vaccine has to adhere to. So all of the vaccines that's on the schedule right now have gone through thorough clinical trials. It's underpinned by a lot of clinical evidence, and also it has to go through regulatory bodies like SAHPRA. So that's also where you can get information on the safety of the vaccine. So any vaccine that is available has to go through the regulatory body to ensure that it's safe and that it's efficacious.
Yeah. In your experience, though, Dr. Abrahams, have you found that parents have become more concerned or more interested in asking about the safety and the trials that these vaccines have gone through in recent time, especially since COVID?
Yeah, definitely, right? So we know that our communities are a bit more engaged in what they put into their bodies, right? Which is understandably so. We should, be aware of what we administer and what we take in. But again, it's just about getting the right information from the right sources. And that's the important thing, because there's a lot of things happening on social media, and just making sure that you listen to your doctor or your nurse or any healthcare professional or the experts. Make sure that your information is accurate, right? So I think that's a really important factor in also increasing our coverage rates for vaccines and making sure that we are protected.
Okay, here's another voice note.
Good morning, Clement. This is Selma from Roodepoort. I think people should be very careful to make sure that their children get all their vaccinations, because these children's diseases, if an adult gets it from a child, can have severe consequences. I got chickenpox from my son when he was young, and in me it caused, except for chickenpox, encephalitis. Boy, that was not nice. Thanks for the lovely show. Bye.
Oh, geez, Selma, that sounds hectic. Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Abrahams, are those some of the cases that happen?
Yeah, exactly right. And this is why I was saying, especially kids going to school. So there's a lot of diseases that spread around in school, and the kids take it home to their parents, to their grandparents, to their siblings who are young and infants. So it's important for them. This is why it's important for them to get booster vaccines, right? So even, for an example, with diphtheria. So these cases are very severe. So it starts out very simple, but then it can affect the heart. It can affect the nerves. So it's not just about the disease itself, like chickenpox, but also the severity and the complications that brings with those diseases, right? So this is why it's so important to vaccinate.
What about parents who've lost their children's road to health card? What should they do in that situation?
So again, I think it's just going back to your clinic. and speaking to a healthcare provider on what can be done, how they can catch up, which vaccines they think the child had, just having that conversation. Perhaps it's on record, and just trying to understand how to move forward from there then. So it's just about going back to the clinic where you've been vaccinating and speaking to a professional about it. But don't be deterred by it and just continue with the vaccination schedule as planned.
All right, let's go to some calls now on 011-883-0702. Khomotso, you are in Springs. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right. What's your question?
I'm good, thanks. Dr. Abrams, my question is, in terms of the meningitis vaccine, is it covered by the government in terms of the cost? And if it's not covered, if the patient or the child goes on without receiving the meningitis vaccine, are they in danger? And how much roughly does it cost? So how much should I basically budget in terms of the vaccination, and how much I should pay, and how often is the child supposed to take it from birth and right through to the adult life?
Wonderful.
Can I just ask which meningitis? Because there's actually 2 meningitis vaccines. Are you aware of which one? Is one a pneumococcal?
Yeah, I think my baby took the one meningitis when he was younger. Now he's 1 year, 2 months, and he's actually due for another one. So I did not go to vaccinate him because apparently it's also still not covered. So now I have to budget for that as well.
So I think you're talking about the invasive meningitis vaccine, right? So it is, I think it's not offered by the public sector at this point, but in the private sector it is available. But I'm not really sure about the funding thereof, but it's not available in the public sector.
Okay.
So if a child does not receive the vaccine, are they in danger of not receiving the vaccine?
There is a risk, and there's an importance for meningitis, right? So we have seen a lot of cases around meningitis, invasive meningitis disease, right? And there are vaccines for it. So the child definitely, younger children under the age of 12 months is definitely at risk, and it is important. But it doesn't have massive outbreaks at this point, right? And this is why it's not covered by the Department of Health at this point. So again, it's just making sure that your child is protected, especially young infants, right? To not be in crowded spaces, sort of like a cocooning strategy where you make sure that the infant is protected from any sick individuals who might potentially be a risk as well. So unfortunately, for now, because it doesn't have a high outbreak numbers, it is not covered by the public health sector at this point.
Thank you so much.
Khomotso, thank you so much for that question. I think it clarifies a lot. Dr. Abrahams, for parents listening now who are sort of unsure about their children's immunization status, what is the first step they should take to make sure that the child is protected? Just go to the clinic. Should they do also research around some of the common diseases that their children are at risk of? What do you advise them to do?
Yes, definitely. Do your research, again, from reputable platforms. Go to the clinic definitely and have a conversation with a healthcare professional, right? It's always easy to have a conversation. Have your Road to Health card. Make sure that your child is up to date. If they did miss a dose, there's no worry. You can catch up. And then make sure that your child gets boosters when they are in school. Also, another point to mention is that with school campaigns, right, there are consent forms that needs to be filled out. And it's quite important for parents to complete those consent forms, right? Otherwise, the child won't get vaccinated. So if they do have questions, please do research. Please reach out to a healthcare provider. Make sure that you understand what diseases your child is getting vaccinated against and the severity and the complications of those diseases, right? Because like I said, We don't see it as often these days because of the amazing job that vaccines have done. So now we don't really think that it's a necessity these days, right? And forget the importance of vaccines. But if you just look at those diseases, you'll see why it is important to vaccinate.
Is there a role that, a better role that schools can also play and other institutions? I don't know if churches or, because there are cases where, there are some parents that simply do not consider that. And sometimes if, the schools intervene, if the churches, how much awareness do you think is needed here?
I think that's actually great channels for communicating and educating, right? So, for example, a church. People go there because it's a trusted source, and educating through those channels is really important. And I think, as I said, vaccination rate, coverage rates are actually decreasing. That means there is a drop-off rate in people getting vaccinated or kids getting vaccinated. So we do need that boost in education. We do need to reach those communities and sharing those messages, right? That's easy to understand, to make sure the vaccine is safe, that it is efficacious, spreading that type of information to parents. But yeah, I think reputable sources like a church or a trusted source, that's a very interesting approach as well, and it's actually quite needed as well. And with schools, when they do send out the consent, I think it's also important to send out, information about the diseases, but also information about the vaccines. I think that would really do an amazing job in people actually providing consent for the kids to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and in cases where parents will use religion or whatever belief systems they have to avoid their children being vaccinated, can there be any kind of intervention? I don't know if maybe you take the kid to the doctor or the clinic and the nurses realize that the child has not been immunized and you give out those reasons. Can there be intervention, or that's solely the responsibility of a parent or the guardian of a child?
Yeah, I think for now the responsibility lies with the parents, right? And I think, again, it's about education and presenting the parent with the risks involved of not getting their child vaccinated. And I think it's then up to them to make that risk-benefit analysis, whether or not they want to proceed. So again, education is the most important thing here.
Okay, got it. Dr. Shakira Abrahams, thanks for making time for us. She's the medical manager at Sanofi, South Africa.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
Forward Brink, City of Johannesburg city manager. We're constantly blaming the politicians for the mess that we see. Are we not letting our officials off the hook?
If you look at the decay of our infrastructure and maintenance, that's not linked to any form of politics. When there's a pothole or when there's water-related issues, people are not interested in what political party is in charge. They would want to see that burst pipe being repaired. Pipes do not ask who is in the coalition. It's not interested in who's now in the caucus. It's got nothing to do with that.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Mzansi, it's raining millions with Powerball and Powerball Plus at 124 million rand in total estimated jackpots this Tuesday. Don't delay. Make it rain lots of cash this March by playing Powerball for 84 million rand and Powerball Plus for 40 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app or cell phone banking. Panda Pusha Play. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Okay, truck 7, that has 0 warning lights. Truck 8, it's just been serviced. I guess we're running like a well-oiled machine. Where would I be without MyWay's comprehensive cover for my vans and trucks? Plus, cover for my customers' orders with goods and transit insurance. I guess we'll never know.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. MyWay. Live your way.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. to give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
Coming up
on the Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
Good morning, Mandy. What's popping today on the show?
Good morning, Clement Manyathela. So GDP numbers have just been released. Our economy grew by 1.1% in 2025. The fourth quarter figures are 0.4%, still far too sluggish, but those numbers are out. Police have arrested family members in that 10 million rand murder insurance fraud case in Limpopo. Such a wild story that. So we'll find out from the police about that. Payments in the spotlight at the Midlanga Commission today. The Ekurhuleni mayor is taking News 24 to court over whistleblower Mpho Mafole's murder reports, and the IC has announced a voter registration weekend in June. So we'll bring you all of that.
Right, that's all coming up on the Midday Report after the news. Thanks for listening to the show. We're back again tomorrow between 9 and 12. Have a beautiful day, friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon. I'm Bali Dlamini. The Independent Electoral Commission has announced the dates for the first voter registration ahead of the local government elections. The registration drive will be taking place on the weekend of the 20th and 21st of June. The announcement was